OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to Friday morning's OTB AM. Kieran Donaghy with you here all morning. We've got a great show lined up for you. There's no Ger, there's no Adrian. Owen Sheen's gone all the way to Japan, but we do have in studio Kevin Kilbane and Micheal Quinlivan. Morning, lads.
How are we keeping?
We're good. Take it easy on me now this morning. Kev, good week for Irish football?
Yeah, I mean, I think the lads coming in this morning, all the lads are raving about his under-21 side.
Yeah.
And, you know, he certainly grabbed the headlines. Troy Pochettino speaking about him in his press conference yesterday as well. But, of course, we're looking at the senior side and see what they've done in those two games. Certainly the Switzerland game, the last 15 minutes, you're seeing the supporters leaving the ground in certainly a better frame of mind than we've seen them in recent times. And I think the new lads stepping into that Bulgaria game. There's my phone going there. That's weak, isn't it?
Jesus,
that's weak from me.
That's rookie stuff.
So yeah, I was pleased enough, certainly with Tuesday night against Bulgaria, because it was up to several of the new players to come in and stake a claim for next month's games, and I think certainly two or three of them did that anyway. So it was great to see.
Who impressed you the most against Bulgaria?
Well, the one thing I've constantly harped on about and banged on about, it's certainly, and you would watch it yourselves and you see the way they've been playing. We play a certain way where I don't think our midfielders put any demands on fullbacks in possession, centre halves in possession. They never get on the ball. We never take control of the game. Now, I'm not saying we're going to take control of a game and have over 60% possession in the game, but there's got to come times in games where they've got to be brave and take it, and we haven't been doing it. And Josh Cullen and Alan Brown, I mean, I've known Alan since he was 15 or 16 when I was coaching over at Hull, and I had him over. So he's one that I've looked at. Certainly playing for Preston North End's been something which has been great as well. So those two in particular impressed me. I just think it was a willingness to take the ball. I don't think they were great, but I just think there was a willingness to take the ball, and those two, certainly Alan with his goal as well, but Josh Cullen certainly in taking the ball, certainly put it in mixed mind. Look, I've got players here who are brave enough maybe to step up when to be counted, and maybe James Collins up front as well. I think he played well. Certainly getting his goal was great for him coming off the bench. And young Jack Byrne, I played League of Ireland football, but I've watched him play a lot this season, and seeing him play the way that he did coming onto the pitch of the night, he played exactly the same way. He put demands on others, and you could see his body language.
Yeah, that's what I was most blown away by him. Was like literally, the minute he came on, he was like, "Give me the ball." I was like, "Jeez, this fella's on for it."
You know yourselves, they put demands on other lads to give him the ball.
Yeah.
So many of our lads, as I was saying before, when I've watched the international side, and maybe it's because it's maybe that little bit of fear that's within them. Maybe it's because that we know that maybe at times that we're going to be under pressure in long spells. But as I was saying earlier on, there's got to come a time in games where you have to take it. And I think Jack Byrne just coming on, body language, demanding from others, almost just giving it him in tight areas. And I was impressed with the cameo. What was it, 10 or 15 minutes that he came on for? But it was great.
Myler was saying his piece during the week with Joe, which was unbelievable. But he was saying that his job was to get the ball, and if Wes was on the pitch, he was going to look for him all the time. And it was very similar to that, the way Jack Byrne was kind of was pulling strings and looking for it. And we need somebody like that. Yeah,
well, that's exactly the case. He's definitely that type of player. And I am not saying that. Mick spoke afterwards about how it might have been a bit different in the Switzerland game, which is probably true. And I think maybe he's got to learn the other side of the game, that when we don't have it, how's he going to filter back into position? How's he going to influence the game without necessarily going pressing all over the pitch? And that's maybe something he will learn as well. But I think if we're chasing a game, and he showed in that last 15 minutes that if we do need a goal, we need something, he can come on and play that Wes role. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, quite weak in the build-up to a replay of the biggest game of all time. It certainly felt like a bigger build-up to the first game. This has been there's a lot going on. There's the ladies' finals on the day after. There was the Camogie finals at the weekend. There was all this stuff with Ireland. There's the rugby.
Yeah, it also seems like both teams, I think you have press nights and that before the first one, so there's a lot of build-up, whereas when it goes to a replay, it's a bit more...
They get away with that.
They get away with just putting the heads down and nobody really talking about it. But yeah, look, it's a huge weekend for football, with the men's final on the Saturday and the ladies on the Sunday. Tipper, obviously, in the ladies in the intermediate final as well, so hopefully they might be able to bring back another intermediate title.
What's your feelings on it?
On the ladies or the men's?
Both.
I think the ladies will do it. I think they've been going very, very well throughout the year.
Okay.
It's going to be a tight game, but I think they might do it. Okay. They've been there, they have the experience. So
Kerry Dublin?
Kerry Dublin, there won't be more than a kick of the ball in it.
Really,
yeah, I think so.
There's a kind of belief around there that it's going to be like the Kerry missed their chance and that Dublin are going to. Peter Canavan in the Indo this morning saying that they're going to. No, he picked them.
I don't buy.
Covered with Sky. He said they're going to win by 11 or 12 points the first day. So
I smile on your face when he came back out again.
I slagged them after it. Yeah, I slagged them after it.
I don't buy the underdog thing with Kerry. I think it's a very different. When people talk about that underdog tag, it normally tends to be surrounded around a provincial final, where a team who's not used to getting to a provincial final, like, you know, let's say Sligo in Connacht, they went and played Mayo. You know, Tip in 2002, I think 2002 or 2001 played Cork, drew with them in Semple Stadium, and then Cork blew them out of it the second day. Kerry are never underdogs, like. So I just don't think it applies. I don't buy into it. I think
we're in for another good one. So
I think so. Yeah. I just don't see how, like, everything points towards another tight game.
Okay.
There's never too much between.
The two of you now, maybe something for you later as well. They've both obviously faced up now, and Kerry going into the game unbelievable underdogs. Now all of a sudden the odds have probably shortened up a little bit between the two sides. Do you think just by Kerry facing them up, that young team that they've got, they can actually say now, yeah, we can actually go out and be a bit braver?
It's a good point. I think they would have felt in the build-up to the game, Kev, that, you know, we can compete with this Dublin team. They beat them in the league. They beat them in the league final in Croke Park in 17, and I felt like that there would be that inner belief, but it's that Dublin juggernaut that has 4 in a row. It's going for 5 in a row. And I think coming away from Croke Park the last day, they'll realise Kerry themselves what they left after them on the scoreboard, and I think they'll say, we just need to come up and perform again, you know, and that's what they need to do. It was all about Kerry's performance, and people say Dublin underperformed, but Kerry won a lot of the battles. An All-Ireland final comes down to 15 battles. Who's going to win more? And what Dublin showed later on is that they were just able to manufacture a result and manufacture a draw out of it, and possibly could have won it. So I think Kerry will also feel lucky, because if you look at the last 7 or 8 minutes, Dublin had the chances to win it. They were that much on Hawkeye from winning the All-Ireland, so it's an opportunity back for them again. What's coming up, lads? What we have on this morning, we're going to do the paper review. We've the sports pages coming up. We've Tadhg Kennelly, Sydney Swans and Kerry Legend coming on at 8 o'clock to talk Dublin versus Kerry. Myself and Michael will push on with that as well. We've a small bit in the tactics board. We've the Premier League. Obviously we'll go through that with Kev. Alan Quinlan's in at 8:50. And then Irish Rugby at 9:15. So an interesting show. We'll get into the papers. We'll start with the Star. He's a brolly good fellow. Good man, David. David Goff says there's no ill feeling between himself and controversial pundit Joe Brolly. The Derry All-Ireland winner Brolly slammed referee's Goff decision in the draw in Sam Maguire final 7 days or 12 days ago, accusing the Meath official of being influenced by Kerry propaganda. He obviously took that back because it was way off. You know, David Goff was spot on.
What do you think about that?
I hated the Kerry propaganda thing. It really pissed me off. I won't lie. It was Eamon Fitzmaurice was asked a question, who was kind of burnt maybe in a big game by a mistake that David made, and he was asked and he gave his answer, and all of a sudden it was like all of us Kerry people were ringing around, and this is the narrative we'll put out, which obviously wasn't the case. But
for sure,
it's more of a WhatsApp group. It's
not a I'm going to put up my phone here. We're going to go through my WhatsApp groups. Live on OTB. If you can find a Kerry propaganda group on my WhatsApp group,
can I have a look for your phone then?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to do it. But yeah, no, it's. I don't think it was something. And fair play for David for being big enough to not let that affect him, because it was a big comment by Joe in the heat of the moment, and I don't believe it has anything to do with. I don't think it has anything to do with Joe actually not being on the next day. I think there's more stuff behind that. Hard to stomach. There's also a story about Lukaku here that he's slamming United's physio group and for not spotting that he had a digestive problem, which was. He was struggling to get his weight down, but the Italians spotted it straight away in his medical, so he's now on a new diet. So we should see a very trim Romelu Lukaku. That's the Star. What have we got for you, Michael?
On the back of the Independent today, there's a very interesting story about Wexford and their fight to keep Davy Fitzgerald. I'm just going to read out a few lines of this. It's to do with Galway's interest in taking Davy up there. Wexford chairman Derek Kent told the Irish Independent last night his dealings with Fitzgerald and their desire to keep his reign, but admitted that the 6-hour round trip from his Clare base is a significant stumbling block. When we got to the beaten in the All-Ireland semi-final, I told Davy, I'll see you in 6 weeks, you take a breather. The 6 weeks are up. Davy's in America currently before his wedding next month, is it? I think. You're home at the weekend and we'll have a chat. Davy's love for Wexford is unbelievable. Davy wants to come back and manage Wexford, but there's loads of stuff to look at. His health, his welfare, driving up and down, and the strain it takes on him personally, which is quite interesting from a Galway perspective. I think it's a bit of a ball from the blue there. I think they would have maybe had a bit of a succession plan with someone within the county. It tends to be the way in hurling that it stays within the county, certainly in the stronger counties. But Davy to Galway would be a big story. Big story, yeah. Especially, I think I think this year he finally got a bit of credence for what he did down in Wexford.
Yeah, he's done a great job. He's done a great job in most places he's done.
Yeah, you forget where they came from and the low base that they were at, and they were a whisker away from an All-Ireland final.
Yeah,
and would have been going into that All-Ireland final playing a team that they'd already beaten.
Yeah,
in a championship, they won a first Leinster title. So, he's done an unbelievable job there. But I think the significant stumbling block for him is the driving.
I drove up there at work 2 weeks ago from Tralee to Wexford. It is a long, hard drive.
Yeah, it is.
Like it's cross country for Davy if you're coming from Clare.
Yeah,
to Wexford, it's cross country. Certainly Galway up the road would be far handier. Yeah. It's motorway now all the way, so it's a quick spin up there.
And the rest of the back of the Irish Independent, Jim Gavin saying that there's no split in the Dublin camp, and it's something I think that the back of the Herald have also run with. There's been musings from outside the county that Connolly coming back in and Brogan being left out, or outside the camp, I should say, that it's starting to have a strain on it. I don't know. I think it's a talking point that people might put out there because they don't have much else to talk about. But
yeah, but it's a kind of legit thing to talk about. Though there is, I was talking to Phil outside earlier on, and if you were training as hard as the guys that were dropped off to 26, we'll say, and Brogan's obviously the big name because sentiment-wise, you kind of say he deserves to be in there. He's going for 5 in a row. I know he wasn't on the 26 last year. This is probably his last season. Could you do worse than bringing on Bernard Brogan with 10 minutes to go? I don't think so. I think he'd lift the stadium, he'd lift the Dublin crowd, and if he got one ball, he'd cause a bit of panic. So, when you're putting in the effort that these guys are, and Michael, it's full on, and you have a guy who's getting on a plane 5 or 6 weeks ago who decided not to play for the last 2 years, and all of a sudden he's in and he's on, and I have a feeling he'll start tomorrow. So, you could be a bit peeved about that if you were down the pecking order.
I could well imagine.
Yeah. When you're not pro, I'd say, Kev, you could be peeved if you were professional.
Yeah.
If some fella came in and that was the situation.
We've all been part of dressing rooms. You know how it works at times, and I can imagine Connolly stepping in the way that he did only a few weeks before major games. I can imagine what the feeling was like. You get on with it. You have to get on with it because you've got to protect yourself in many respects. But there'd be that little bit in the back of your mind thinking, it's not right.
Is that the PR machine putting it to bed? For talking about propaganda.
I think, well, from what Jim Gavin has said on Dubs TV,
he has to say that.
Yeah, he does.
There's a rift, obviously.
A lot of the time, the manager won't even know what's going on within the panel, I would say.
Yeah, he could have that sort of a feeling.
That sort of a you can have a feeling, but that sort of a rift happens with maybe one or two groups of players rather than you getting to the manager.
Yeah, the ultimate goal. Why I think they should start them is it kind of kills all of that really. If they start Connolly and he kicks 3 points and they win the All-Ireland, Jim was right all along and it was the right decision. You might as well be hung for a sheep as a lamb at the stage of the game. What have we got, Kev?
Yeah, I got the Irish Times here. It's been one for you here in Kerry as well, about Donny Buckley. Buckley's backstop difficult for Dublin to negotiate, and basically saying about the experience that he's brought in. Kerry coach brings a wealth of experience, innovation to the county's challenge. What difference do the backroom team make? Because I think now the backroom teams are getting bigger and bigger every season, aren't they? Certainly with the GAA, you're seeing so many coaches going in there.
Yeah, I think coaches. We made a point on Shacklock a few weeks ago that it's not a manager anymore. It is a backroom team, and one guy. It's gone to such a level now that one guy can't cover all the bases. So you need a guy like. And Donny's probably gets a lot of the credit, but Tommy Griffin would have been with Peter Keane as looking after the defensive side, and Tommy was a very shrewd centre-back, full-back midfielder, but he always had a defensive eye to his game, and he would always been, if he was midfield, he'd always be back helping the boys. He'd know when to double team, he'd know when a fella could be beaten. But Donaghy with Mayo got them to a level of tackling.
I was at the game. It was that was certainly the best I'd seen Kerry in a number of years. It was incredible how they were in that match.
I think he had him in good shape.
Yeah.
You know, more than just kind of tackling and turning guys over. I think he had the man to man, and if there was an extra guy back, he was sniffing around for help. They were looking for work, I felt, Kerry the last day, which was a big thing. And you know, Peter Keane would have, you know, when he turns and looks to somebody, and he could get Donaghy Buckley in, and it was a big opportunity to go get one. Michael, he did a great job with Mayo. He was a big reason that Mayo were competing, because let's face it, Mayo were always were maybe short that one top class forward to get him over the line, but defensively they always put it up to everybody.
Yeah, they were. I was very impressed with Kerry, you know, bar maybe McCaffrey's goal, which kind of comes from a kick out where Kerry had pressed up.
Yeah.
Dublin very rarely got through the middle of him. Yeah. Very rarely. And I mean, even when they did, it was 2 and 3 bodies around the ball. Yeah. They were being pushed really wide and then drifting back across over the field. And that takes a lot of concentration, because a lot of the time it's not very tight, as in you tuck in the 10 yards off the left hand side, similar to enough if you see a back four move across in soccer, and then they shift over and back without ever opening up that middle. And it was probably the one time since Mayo used to do it to Dublin that I've seen it done as well.
Yeah, no, he'll have to get a bit of credit for it, because they've done a. If you look at where they were early on in the year when Cork ran through them, now we've seen Cork run through a few teams since, but Cork ran through them in the Munster final, you know, and there was every pundit out there, and even ourselves leaving the stadium, were kind of going, Jesus, Kerry are open here, But they did a good job the last day of tightening that up, which would have been a big emphasis for them. The Sun tries just to buy Poch, lay off Parrott. So Tottenham boss Mauricio Pochettino fears that there's too much pressure on Troy Parrott. I talked to you about this outside, Kev.
Yeah.
Robbie was 17 when he came in.
Yeah.
What's changed that 17-year-olds are now too young?
The one difference is that Robbie had been playing first team football. Troy Parrott still hasn't played a senior game at any level. So that's the one thing you're looking at. Is he ready to step up? I'd probably say no right now, because he hasn't played for Poch. I'd love to see it. Last season he probably would have got a couple of cup games last year, and he was injured around January time, I think it was. I think they had Tranmere in the cup and he missed out through injury. So he's missed that valuable time, I think, where we could actually judge him a little bit better now, certainly at senior level. But you only need to look at the goals, the quality on his goals of the night. Certainly that second one late on, it was an incredible finish from such a young player. Age is no limit, it's no barrier in my mind. I do think that, and if he gets any sort of game time with Spurs this next month, I think Mick could be under pressure to call them into the senior side.
They're a Champions League team as well, do you know what I mean? If he was down playing with a team at the bottom, I'm sure he would have played already. But John Giles was talking about it last night. We have a video here to have a look at it.
I wouldn't worry about his age, Nathan. People saying, well, he's only 17.
Would you worry about the fact he's never played a game of senior football?
No.
You wouldn't like to see him 20 minutes for Spurs in the League Cup?
Well, what does it prove, 20 minutes? Yeah. Like what I find with players of the real calibre, the age doesn't mean anything. Of course they can learn with experience, but if they have it, if they really have it and they have it physically, they can do it at 17. We've seen players do it at 17. You know, I know Pelly and these lads are exceptional in what they did, but there's players who have it.
No,
he does have it.
Oh, he's got it. He's got a bit of magic about him, doesn't he?
Physically, if you'd seen him a year ago, he's probably unrecognisable to the physical condition he's in now.
Yeah.
He's grown physically, which of course is at the age where he will be developing. But you can see lads bouncing off him. However they've shaped him there at Spurs, he's probably able for it.
Yeah, and if you look at Son and Harry Kane, like they're all like, Son was a revelation last year, wasn't he? He was he carried the can when Kane was injured. So if you're playing behind 2 or 3 of those fellas, it's hard to get game time. Obviously, if you're going to look, but
especially with Kane, like if Kane's fit, he plays. He's that sort of player. He doesn't like being left out. He wants to score 30 goals a season. So that's, I think the getting in there is the one thing.
Exactly.
Like he got injured towards the end of last season, and now Llorente is gone. I think if he can get a run of 3 or 4 games,
it's quite telling that he didn't go and sign anyone. And I know Tottenham have been a club that haven't necessarily gone out and splashed, and and tried to maybe get in people that's going to be the second choice strikers. Llorente was a perfect one for them, but it looks to me by that decision not to go and get anyone, that he is your next best now. So hopefully, I think we're all hopeful anyway, because we don't have anyone at that level at all.
No, and he'd be a huge lift, I think.
Yeah,
you know, because the fans would really get behind a kid like that out there. The Examiner of an interesting story inside by John Fogarty. Gavin set to recall Brogan to matchday squad. So Bernard Brogan is set to be included in Dublin's matchday squad for tomorrow's All-Ireland final replay. The Irish Examiner understands. So I think that's a good move. I think that's a good move by Jim. I just think Paddy Small is good. He's young. He's energetic. He can definitely score. He's going to be a great player. But I just think, you know, he didn't make great decisions late on when the game was in the melting pot the last day, and I just don't see Bernard making those.
Yeah, there was a couple dropped into the keeper.
The shot out in the left wing. I thought the shot that actually led to the Kerry goal was okay. He just slided a bit.
Yeah, sometimes.
And that's an easier goal to kick into. If you put it up in the air, the wind often carries it over that bar. But the one way out in the left wing, Paul Gainey again, which he did late on, full length diving block. That was a really hard kick for a left-legged player from that side. If it was a right-sided guy coming in his right side, you could look at it. But interesting that he's going to recall. That was a big call.
It's a huge lift for the Dublin fans. I mean, even if you put him on for 5 minutes, you saw the roar that Tommy got coming on from the Kerry fans. You can imagine the bedlam it would be for Brogan coming on, and that lifts everyone. You forget that sometimes, you know.
It feeds to the players.
It does, yeah. You know, you grow 10 feet tall because you see this lad coming on who has 7 All-Ireland medals, and you know,
you can trust him.
Yeah, you can.
And he's a scorer, and. You know when you're a scorer, you just have to get the ball close to goal. You're going to work a shot. That's what he'll do.
And their accuracy of their inside forward line actually wasn't unreal.
Yeah,
2 weeks ago
we talked about it this morning. Both teams were.
Yeah, the inside forward lines didn't really.
And when they were all the talk.
Yeah, that's the thing. And most of the time, actually, it wasn't taking bad options. It just was pure execution, which is interesting. The back of the Herald, which we mentioned earlier on, we stand together. Jim's hails the solidarity of the champions again, running with the story, probably on a different, with a different twist to it, that the people outside the camp talking about Brogan not being included doesn't really wash inside in their dressing room.
Yeah. And
Brian McGuigan also states that Connolly could be the hero, touching on another point that you made there, that Connolly could be in line for a starting role this weekend.
Right, I've got the London Times here. This is probably going off All Ireland, off Premier League, off international football here, but it's certainly something that I've looked at over the next few years. Middlesbrough to sue the league. Now, the story here, it's Matt Lawton has a story. It's in the London Times. Middlesbrough is set to sue English Football League over its failure to enforce the financial rules over Derby's purchase of their own stadium. This is something where, I mean, financial fair play comes in the Football League.
Okay.
Sides falling away from the Premier League, not necessarily, obviously, generating the money that you would do in the Premier League. And how are they generating funds? And this is something that, certainly the way that teams have overspent over the years, we saw QPR a few years ago that they were fined heavily for overspending and getting promoted to the Premier League. When they dropped back down, they had to pay a huge fine. So it's something that I think is going to happen. It's going to be more common practice further down the line, because a side's desperate to try to get back up to the promised land with overspending, and it's crazy. It is crazy, really, when you look at what Norwich did last year and how they got back to the Premier League with even in getting promoted. Now they spent virtually nothing. I think it's $1 million over the summer that they spent, and it's about maybe developing their own and also trying to get maybe one or two along the way with you. And I don't know, maybe this one Middlesbrough, this could open a can of worms, I think, really, anyway, if this were to happen anyway.
Yeah. Cluxton, the back of the mirror. Cluxton, a true great. But his teammates, it's the teammates who make him the keeper he is. That's from Supple, who was the sub goalie for a long time, I think, to Stephen. So that's.
I think his teammates are fairly happy when he pings one 70 yards into your chest and you're standing out in the opposition 65.
Yeah, I saw something on Twitter about, you know, I said in my column in the start today that he's our Tom Brady. He's the guy who is, you know, he's the quarterback for Dublin. He sets them up and he doesn't kick out the ball. He kicks it to space where you're running on, which is like a quarterback does. He doesn't throw the ball to you. He throws it where he thinks you're going to be. And I think that's the way kickouts are going to go, you know, and this is the way, of course, we know it's the way kickouts go, but I think the days of putting it out long, or we'll talk about it later on, I suppose the only time that happens now is when the press is on, because, you know, you can't really put it into space because that's the idea of the press, there's no space there, so it's nice to see that the ball going out long now, isn't it? It's that bit of excitement that I think we lost from the game for 10 years. We were all sitting there, it was shot kick out, shot kick out, shot kick out. Whereas I felt in the All-Ireland final, there was a lot of ball where it was travelling through the skies of Croke Park, and there's an anticipation. Who's going to catch this? It was old school.
And there was a lot of very good fielding went on as well, which is also, I know I'm a forward, and kicking
you're a good man to field the ball. You could play out around the middle.
Yeah, kicking a score is great and all, but give me a catch around the middle of the field all day long.
Yeah, especially as they call it in Australia. If you put a knee up on somebody's shoulder and you get up there.
Yeah.
How long do you think he goes on for? You lads know what it takes, the pressure you put yourself under, you know, the amount of travelling you need to do, the amount of work that you need to do to go into it for at times, very little reward. Now, he's had a lot of rewards, don't get me wrong, he has, but how long do you think he goes on for, given his age?
He's a teacher, which means he's kind of like a pro during the summer, which is ideal when you're an inter-county footballer at this level. It's a fascinating one. Cluxton, when I referred him to him as Tom Brady, I mentioned that he could play on for a long time yet. You know, Tom is 42.
Yeah. Is it possible though to leave him out of the league entirely next year and say, well, I tell you what then?
I don't think he wants that though.
Yeah.
He strikes me as someone who never gets phased. Like, he's arguably playing better this year than he ever has.
Yeah, but you do have to give, you know, you
have to build for the next when he goes.
You have to build for the next guy when he goes, and also kind of giving him a mental break from it. Plus he's teaching a lot, you know, he's obviously working hard at that time of the year. But like, you know, he's just, like the last day he was incredible. He saves the penalty.
He's the reason there.
He touched that one from Paul Murphy. When Paul Murphy struck that, he struck it as clean as you can strike a ball. And for Cluxton to be able to get that close, get a finger on it, knock it onto the crossbar.
I think his body's, inches. For that one, his body is going.
Yeah,
and he reaches back and puts a hand. It's an incredible save. Like, I think he keeps going as long as he wants, and that'll be it. If he decides to retire, it won't be because he's pushed out. It'll because
it's because he wants to go. Yeah, and he's such a kind of, you know, there's probably a part of him as well. Will, you know, if he's leaning towards stepping out, you know, there's a guy behind him who he's been helping and studying under for a long time, who he'll want to kind of give that opportunity as well to. So, you know, but it'll be up to him. He could stay and there was talks after or before the first game that people were saying like that if Jim goes, he could be the perfect replacement to come straight in for him. Like, there's no reason that he couldn't come in and manage them next year. He seems to be that kind of, you know, distant character from the group anyway. Like, he's obviously a great captain in the group, and I've had him as a captain with international rules. He is a brilliant captain. But, you know, when he steps out of that, you know, if he was said, Jim is gone, we need somebody to take this over, I'm sure he could step into them, fill them boots, no problem.
The back of the Irish Daily Mail today runs with the story on a health scare for Stephen Kenny, who was held back in hospital following the win in Sweden during the week. I think it's hopefully only something minor, I think. Yeah. And at the top, another England centre having a pop at Ireland's World Cup hopes. I think Quinny might quash that later on.
Warren Gatlin had a kind of go office there 2 weeks ago, didn't he? I don't think that kind of backfired on him. So yeah, that's great that the English are getting very confident over us.
This is the Guardian here as well. Onto cricket. Let's talk about cricket. Oh yeah, sleeping giant Butler wakes from the ashes, lulled to revive England. I've not been following it, so I don't really know what the stories of this here, Kieran. But I mean, I think in general, England are trying to get themselmes back into it. I think
not a cricket man, Kev.
No, it wouldn't be.
The back of the Telegraph runs with another cricket story. We'd ask you about that.
Can we just skip the papers that have cricket as the headlines?
And just up the top, it's an interview with Chris Froome after that horror crash during the year, hoping that he'd get back on a bike before the end of the year.
Racing Post, Kev.
Racing Post, quick one here. Yeah, Ocean Crystal, the brilliant Ocean Crystal, retired after career-ending injury on the gallops. Michael Stout's horse suffered leg injury, and it will be retired. So yeah, that's a blow, really there.
Yeah, it's Friday morning, 8 o'clock on OTB AFM or AM. We've got Micheal Quinlivan and Kevin in studio. Alan Quinlan's coming in. We've an All-Ireland final breakdown coming up in the next hour. And we're back with Tadhg Kennelly straight after these.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, soccer, basketball or badminton courts and many more. Check us out on sportirelandcampus.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
OTB AM.
Do you like Kilkenny in that full forward position?
No, I think he probably offers more out the field, but again, that's down to you have to evolve. Like, teams are doing so much work into how do you stop them now? Do you know what I mean? So I think.
So do you think that was a reaction from Jim Gavin to say what Lee Keegan did to Kieran Kilkenny in 2017?
I think definitely, because your top players, like, we know the amount of possessions like Kilkenny has and the influence he has in games, and even if you look at the last day, Brian Fenton, how he was taking out the games, teams spent hours upon hours zoning in on the key players. So I think it is Jim Gavin kind of saying, well, listen, we'll maybe change him up a bit so it's not so predictable, if you know what I mean. And again, it just goes into how deeply teams go into each other. And I'm sure the likes of Brian Fenton will be looking to have a bigger input this week, and Kieran Kilkenny. But likewise, Kerry will be sitting down in Tralee, wherever they're based, on. They'll have a plan to try and negate them as well.
What do we think?
Both were quiet. Fenton just struck me as being, he just wasn't himself. And the main thing I would see is, normally you see him give a ball and he goes hard, whereas this time he was very reserved. He'd hand pass it off and he'd just sit and he'd leave everyone else go, and he was sitting for the game. It just, I'd expect that he'll be a bigger influence the next day, I would imagine. But
I think it's a danger for Kerry that he's, whether he was sick or whether that's been put out there to for him. I think he is going to be a dangerous animal come Sunday, and Kerry are going to have to really kind of, I would say, early keep an eye out for him, because he'll be hearing now again that he didn't have a good game against Jack Barry or against Dave Moore in the Kerry midfield, and that's happened a few times to him in games, and he'll be wanting to kind of come out. If it was me, I'd want to come out in that first 15 minutes and absolutely be like a juggernaut around the place.
Yeah, I found that midfield battle, especially in the first half, very strange. So they all wanted to pick each other up.
Yeah.
Nearly nobody wants to back down and give in to the other team's, tactics, like what did they want. So you find it's an endless cycle, and he seemed to want to pick up David Moran and be worried about David Moran, while Jack Barry was only waiting beside him for when Dublin get the ball. So I don't know, maybe his head was turned by that as well. It just seems strange.
And I think when Jack in the first minute and a half went past Macaulay and kind of left him for dead going down the pitch, I think whatever talk there may have been about don't let Barry pick you up, go on Dave and try and put him in the back foot, I think after that they might have said, listen, all right, maybe so, no. But it was, what about Kilkenny, full forward out the pitch?
I think he drifted back out as the game went on.
I think he was big late on in the game, orchestrating.
Yeah, neither team really played with a three-man full forward line for the whole game.
It suits them to have Conan and Mannion inside, right?
And I think when Dublin were at their best for that last 10 minutes, despite not getting the scores, Kilkenny was a huge influence. He was on the ball everywhere. And I think what you'll see is he'll probably drift out a bit earlier this time. And Rock will play a bit deeper inside with the two guys, or just on the 45, because it didn't seem to me like he played very deep. I think he's wearing 14 or 15 on his back. I don't think he's actually playing.
No, he's kind of playing as that kind of guy in the D that's coming out as the link, as Scully and Howard are playing defensive. To be honest, probably the diamond up front, really, isn't it?
It is. And I think, Scully and Howard's position actually allows Jack McCaffrey to do what Jack McCaffrey does, because he barely touches the ball in his own half, because the two guys are coming back inside their own 45. So there's a lot of intrigue and things there. I know we talked about Kilkenny and Fenton, but for me, who picks up Dean Rock? I mean, he caused, and you see, I think people look at Dean Rock and say he doesn't go past 2 players and kick this brilliant score. But he is so effective. He gets himself into the right position so that he doesn't have to do that.
I know that, like the winning, the point to level it was.
Yeah, he knows where to be to get the scores. And I think he put Jason Foley under wicked pressure for the whole game.
What I was surprised about is, as well as he came out the field and he was catching the ball over Foley, and he was kind of. I thought when they went out the field that it suit Jason, because Jason's got wheels, and I thought Jason would have looked to exploit him out there and say, well, if you're going to come out here, I'm going to bring you another 30 yards down the pitch and really take you out of your comfort zone, bring you back into your own half-back line. But I felt like Rock played it on his own terms.
Yeah.
And if I was Jason Foley looking at that game, I'd be saying, when Kerry get the ball, Dean, I'm going to pull you on a bit of a run, because it was really on his terms. And
for most of the game.
If you're going to mark a guy and follow him around the place, it's going to be like, you're going to have a long day following a guy like Rock.
It's I don't see where they change it though in that full back line. I thought Morley did very, very well on Mannion, and I thought Tom O'Sullivan actually, when Tom O'Sullivan was defending Con, he never ever got tight, which I was very impressed with. Because the one thing Con, what he's brilliant at is if you come up tight with him, he's turned and he is gone. He's gone like that, and you're not getting back.
He loves you getting close to him.
He's so powerful. Whereas Thomas Sullivan was going and he was staying that yard, and then he was shepherding them into 2 or 3 men. And it was the one time this year where I thought someone really defended very, very well against Con.
Con put the frighteners on Kerry at one stage. I don't know if you remember, Kev. He got a ball going into the Hill 16 and came across the top, and Tom was with him and he pushed him into all these contacts that you're talking about, Michael. And next thing,
he was out through the far side.
He's out through the far side. He's putting a shot in his left leg, and it was a great save by Shane Ryan, who, let's call a spade, and he'll be under huge pressure again on Sunday, Shane Ryan. But I thought he was, for a fella in his first All-Ireland final that young, and like you're faced with this Dublin press when they have the calibre player they have going across the middle. I felt like he was good. He was good under the high ball. He came out late on. He took that one under the crossbar. He knocked the one up from Paddy Small late on, and his kickouts were solid. Because that's what you're going to get really against the press. It's not going to be, it's not going to be easy going. And then he'd the wherewithal late on to orchestrate what looked like a kind of a set piece for Kerry to get the shot kick out.
I've looked at the game a couple of times, and the short kick, I don't know. We were talking off air, kind of saying that Kerry actually getting possession in the last few minutes was a very good idea. Dublin pressed up. But I think because they went so short for the whole game, their backline was bet for the last about 10 minutes. We did it. We played G in a Munster final in 2016, and he allowed us to go short for about 50, 60 minutes of the game. And I remember in our review after the game, the backs just going like we were under so much pressure defensively, and then you were asking us to go get the ball as well.
Yeah.
And I just thought that maybe, Paul Murphy won one. Jason Foley won that ball, just chipped over to the left-hand side. Maybe it could have been one of the fresher guys who went and got one and brought it up the field, or maybe the kick-out could have went a bit longer, because I felt like they, especially in the last 10 minutes, they played into Dublin's hands. Dublin wanted them to run down so that they could turn them over. They had more turnovers in the tackle, surprisingly, in the last 5 minutes than they did in the rest of the game combined, which is crazy.
And we're going to talk through how they managed that. I think we have Tadhg Kennelly on the line. Tadhg?
Sorry, boy, how you doing?
How's it going, Harris? How are you keeping?
No, I'm not too bad, man. Not too bad. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, good to hear from you. How was your season this year with the Swans? How would you fare out?
Not great. It's a bit of a transition for us at the minute, and maybe it's the fact that I took up an assistant coach role with the club, and they went backwards. So maybe that's a factor.
You lost a lot of legends.
We did. We lost about 1,200 games of experience, but a good year, being a bad year if you can. But we blooded a lot of young fellas, and we're just priming ourselves now to get back at it. We finished with 8 wins, which is disappointing out of 22. But it's first time they missed the finals in 10 years, second time in 20 years. So the only other time they did it start was in 09, which was a good year for myself.
Come here to me, and keeping with the Aussie rules, Kerry's Mark O'Connor, who could possibly be out there hopping off of Fenton in these lads on tomorrow night, but he's got a big game in an hour, 2 hours or so against the West Coast Eagles. He's been one of the most improved players, Tadhg, down there. It's great to see he's rise so quickly.
I think it's unbelievable what he's done.
All right, Tadhg, that's all right. Bye.
That's a great answer.
Don't worry about it. Just shoot off there. Mark O'Connor just talking about him, Kev, the young Kerry lad that went to Australia. There was a lot of grief came Tadhg's way when he made that call, because he was our guy. He was our next guy that was coming to join David Moran. And you know, people said, "Oh, you should have left the Kerry fellas alone," almost go get the other fellas. But like, when you look at this guy down here now,
years ago, wasn't it?
Well, Clifford never wanted.
There was a lot of talk with him.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk because he was such a obviously the Aussies be going, "Hey, who's this guy? He's 6'4", he's killing all around him over there." So we got to look at it. But you know, the opportunity this guy has for his professional career for the next. He's 22, same age as Tom Sullivan. They've been best friends since he was in the cot. If you read his article in the Independent this week, it's a huge opportunity for him to go make a serious life for himself, like Tadhg did down under.
I think Tadhg got a bit of flack over it. I went to a couple of those trials a while ago. The trials are the platform for you to perform. You get it if you want it. Mm-hmm. It's not them coming and poaching. Yeah, really. It's only giving you a platform to go play professional sports, and it's probably the only one thing that we can do in the GAA is make that step to go play.
And you see all the ladies that are doing it now, and they're dead right to go experience that. Tadhg, you're back.
I am, Starboy. I am.
bad old reception down in Sydney, is there? Are you in the stall?
I'm in Queenstown actually. I'm only a few hours away from you. I'm in the stall actually. I'm not.
Where did you watch the first game, Tadhg, and what did you make of it?
I did. I generally like to watch the final at home, to tell you the truth, Star. I like watching it and just spending a bit of time, I suppose, understanding what's happened with the game and whatnot. But lots of positives for the Kerry boys. I'd say more positive for Kerry than not. You got a young fella in David Clifford, that expectation on his shoulders at 20 years of age, and he kicked 2 points and he's hitting up frees, and Johnny Cooper was that worried about him, but he was an average game. There's a lot of plus with that. And obviously Tommy Welch coming in. I think there's a lot of plus side with the Kerry boys. With Dublin be disappointing. I think that the tactics would play a huge part of what happens the next day. Dublin be ready for Kerry's press.
Speaking about tactics, speaking about the tactics, Tadhg, I want to chat to you about this press, because I know I broke you up for details on it before we played Dublin in the 16 semi, and you were very helpful with all the stuff that you sent on to me that time. But you did this in 2015. I'll never forget it. I was at the game above in Croke Park, the Aussie rules, and it was to our eyes, looking at it, where all these Aussies were up inside the 65. You obviously knew the danger of Ireland getting the restarts back. What are the areas that both teams can kind of improve on the press? Because both teams are doing it now. Did you see deficiencies in it, or did you see huge positives for both teams? And what would you like to see worked on for the replay?
Yeah, Star, you're right. In layman's terms, basically, if you turn the ball over in your front half, you're probably going to score, because the scoring opportunity from a kick-out. Where the game of Gaelic football at the minute is, well, you'll turn it over in your back half. But at that point, you got to score through 15 players. Whereas a lot of AFL at the moment, and it's slowly coming into the GAs, press the kick out and press it and turn the ball over in your front half. And if you turn it over in your front half, it gives you more opportunity to score, which Kerry done in 3 or 4 of those kick outs against Cluxton, but they didn't capitalise on the opportunities. They got the penalty and Gainey missed the shot. They had the opportunities to actually reward themselves from those press and turn out. And then what happened, obviously, they got through it and Dublin scored their goal. I'd love to see O'Brien go to McCaffrey and give him something to think about on that side of it. But the press itself, it's a huge component of what happens to AFL football, and at the bigger ground with more players. When you think about it, with less players on a smaller ground, you'd think you'd be able to press the ground more. We did it in 15 with the Australian team, and I was assistant coach with the Australian team, and I thought I was going to be disowned forever by my mother and my family, but I'm able to get through border and security. I'm okay. And it was more about, we used the goalkeeper and everything. Our goalkeeper was about 30 yards out from goal and basically played as an extra defender and left 2 forwards inside the 21-yard line. And
he's probably a defender anyway, because your goalies were never too great. Let's call a spade a spade. Come here to me, Tommy Walsh. You had him down in Sydney. How happy are you for him to see him reignite his career at 30 years of age when he was gone for 4 years, and it was tough on him. He came back from a professional setting. It was all expected that this guy was just going to come in and be, huge for Kerry going forward. It didn't work for him. He's gone away. He obviously had a horrific injury, but how great is it to see him back out there? And if Kerry started him, how influential could he be both on Kerry's press, being, you wouldn't have Brian Howard catching it over Gavin White if you had Tommy Walsh out there, and also if Dublin put on their press, he'd be a good option to come out and break that up.
Yeah, you're spot on, Star. On a personal note, I'm delighted with Tommy. People got to understand the injury you had. It's as bad as an injury you'll ever have. It's the new age ACL or cruciate ligament injury of sport now. It's to tear your hamstring off the bone. It's a skiing injury where people land and actually tear it off the bone. And basically, Tommy had to learn to walk and run. And a man that's that big, it's obviously going to take time. And the biggest compliment you can give Tommy is the fact that, when he came back into Kerry, he was that selfless and said, look, I'm distracting the team too much. I'm going to step away from the squad and step away from Kerry football for a year, not knowing that he's ever going to get the chance again. And then obviously with the retirements of yourself and some older players, Peter Keane, had the courage to go, look, we've got Tommy Walsh here in our backyard. He's got a lot of experience. He's still a young man at 30 years of age. I'm going to bring him in. And everything he's touched has been gold. I'm with you. I'd start him. I'd start him just to give him something to think about. What's McCarthy going to do? Who's going to play on him? You're starting to play the game in your terms, where the opposition are thinking about, who's going to play on? What are we going to do? And you look at that press as you're talking about the kickouts. Himself and Barry and Spillane and Davy Warren. Like that's a formidable force sitting in that part of the ground where you can't kick it out long, so you actually have to try and force the kick out itself, and that's probably where you're going to get more turnovers. I'd start him, and if he doesn't last, I think Tommy'd last no problem. As you know, Star full forwards don't run that much. They're all bluff, really.
I agree with you. I made that point that I played 8 minutes against Mayo in 14, having not played all year, and played 98 the following week in the replay. So Tommy's in better shape than me, and he would be. I don't see. Even doing a Kennelly with him, Tadhg, maybe starting him. Starting him, as you said, put Kerry's best foot forward. Go at it. You could take him off 10 minutes into the second half for Killian Spillane, and if you needed that big ball, or you needed a bit of, that in around the house late on, he'd be a perfect guy to throw back on. Kerry used 2 of their subs in garbage time the last day, in like literally a minute or 2 to go. So it's not like we've 7 or 8, guys that they're looking to throw on there. I think if you're going to wait that long to use your subs, that could be a tactic that could be huge for Kerry. It'd be ballsy by Peter Keane, but fortune favours the brave, as we found out with Mickey Hart when he did it with Peter in 2005.
I think you're spot on, Star, because straight away it's got Dublin on the back foot going, well, what do we do here? They've got their own decisions what they're going to do with Connolly, as far as bringing him on.
Would you start Connolly?
I probably would, because he's going to give something straight away to think to the Kerry backs. If I was thinking again about, I'm in the coaching game now here, and one of the first things you do when it comes to selection is, what are the opposition team, coaching team, going to think about a player starting somewhere? And you want them thinking straight away about, oh no, how do we handle this and what you do? And straight away in the game, you're putting them off guard, because they're going straight away, well, oh no, who's going to play on Jim Connolly? Right, okay, well, we got Morley on Mannion, who's done a great job on him. Okay, who's going to play on Connolly? And you're all, straight away, the opposition coaching team or the management are moving or trying to fix things straight away, and you're putting them off guard, like Tommy Walsh would do to Dublin. So. And that's where the tactics and the mind games come in from a management point of view, and how you actually handle the occasion and what's happening from a real breakdown, tactical point of view, and how you get the advantage.
Call it, Tadhg. Who do you think will come out top? If you're speaking with your heart, I probably know your answer, but speak with your coach's hat on and where you think this is going.
The 3 replays has been in All-Ireland finals. The man of the match has been someone that hasn't started the game before. I'm going to say Tommy's going to be man of the match, and Kerry going to win by 3 points.
I wouldn't doubt you, Ars. Good man. Thanks. Enjoy your weekend. I know you're on a bit of a sesh with the boys, so enjoy your crack down there. No better man to do it.
All right, sorry, boy. Good to hear from you.
Thanks, Tadhg. Thanks. So Tadhg is starting Connolly and Tommy Walsh, lads. We're going to look at a few things on the tactics board. The one big thing I want to look at, lads, and I've studied this for Sky Sports tomorrow night, and we've got a nice bit of video from behind the goals in it, is what Dublin did late on when they're a man down. So we'll take a Dublin guy out for a minute. As we said, Kev, Kerry went short to the extra defender late on in the game. And what Dublin did was pretty. They've talked about it, I would say. They've studied it. You know, it's a great coaching tool for teams going forward. When we played Donegal in 14, they were losing by 3 points late on. They were playing the same way as they'd played all year. They had everybody back. We were passing the ball around here unmarked, uncontested, and it was never an issue to what we wanted to do. What Dublin did the last day is they pushed up. You know, they made it 14 on 14 out the pitch. So what they did is they got bodies all the way up, but that obviously left a very dangerous man here in Tommy Walsh by himself. But our man again, the leader, Cluxton, he came out and picked him up, which allowed James McCarthy to push on to free Paul Ganey, who was free at that stage of the game. And, you know, that was the kind of setup they had. So we were wondering then, you know, Michael made a great point about the turnovers. They had more turnovers in the last 7 or 8 minutes than they had all game, as in turning Kerry guys over in contact. And they were able to do it by being brave. There's nobody in goal, but the ball's 140 metres from the goal. And what they were able to do is mark up. And the other thing they did is the ball went out that side first and Dean Rock followed it out. And this is Dean Rock, we'll say, at this top corner here. And when they got the ball to transfer back over and they passed it out here to Jonathan Lyne, Dean Rock ran and picked up the goalie. So what they had on this side of the pitch, they had a man over here, but you're under pressure of an All-Ireland final. When you're starting to solo the ball out this way, you can't see this guy. So what they did effectively is they were able to kind of create this extra bodies over here, and eventually Kerry were coming out and running into contact. But I thought it was a fascinating way, Michael, to get yourself back in a game.
It was unbelievable coaching though, because I've been in that stage of a game. Like, your mind is all over the place. You're scrambled. You don't really know what's going on. And for them to have the wherewithal to go, right, we're going after this ball now. We're pushing Cluxton. And even what I was very impressed with was, even when Jonathan Lyne gets the ball and he goes down this touchline here, they open the space for him. They're saying, go on, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then suddenly, bang, there's 2 of them on him. The ball gets turned over. Connolly, now maybe it was probably a foul, I would say, on Jonathan Lyne. Yeah, maybe. But
who triggered that? Would that be Jason Sherlock coming on, or would that be from Cluxton from deep?
It looks very much like in the video, James McCarthy, who's on Tommy Walsh, he spots that Paul Gady's free, and he kind of turns around and kind of beckons Cluxton to come out. And what they did in the instance was, this is where Tommy was on Cluxton, and Dave Moran had broken free out of a tackle here, and he was soloing up the wing. Kevin Mack was chasing him hard, and what they did was, James McCarthy realised, okay, we're in a bit of danger here now. They've broken out, and very quickly he left Paul Ganey to allow Cluxton to go back into goals. Yeah. In the heat of the moment, Ganey was wide open, running with his arms open, but you know, Dave Moran's running down this side of the pitch. There's bodies everywhere around him. He's been chased by 2 guys. And I think what Dublin do very well tactically is chase you down from behind. It's kind of something more and more we're seeing come into the game, and it's new. You know, it's an old basketball one of getting them down the sideline, chasing them down, making them uncomfortable, and doing something what you don't want to do. And in that instance, Dave had a split second when this exchange happened between McCarthy and Cluxton. So while it happened, Dave was running full throttle. Tommy broke out and had his hands up. There was a 50-yard ball with bodies around you with 3 or 4 minutes in the game, when Dave Moran's after trucking around for 70-odd minutes. And I think he made the right call. It was a bit of a risky pass. Now, Dave has the pass in the locker, but I felt he just said, I don't want to kick this up on the outside of the boot, skew it out over the line, give Dublin the ball back. And Dave is so good in contact and he's so good on the ball that I think he fancied himself to hold on to it. And you got to give Dublin huge credit. Kevin Mack, Connolly was around him, and they just you know, they upset him, they turned it over, and they went down and scored.
Just when he looks up, that's when they tackle you as well.
Yeah.
As in, when you're making that hair run
decision
back, it's very hard to take the ball off someone if they know you're there.
Yeah.
But like, he runs along, and then next minute David Moran just gets his head up, and that's when the hand comes in.
Yeah.
Because he's taking his eyes off the ball, and the ball comes out. Like, he had done brilliantly to go past the tackle.
Unbelievable.
And like, this is split-second stuff, as you said, in the last minute of an All-Ireland final. Like, it's you know, so minute that you might even pick up on it. Like, but I thought Dublin for that last 10 minutes were just They got a lot of plaudits for that 10 minutes against Mayo. I thought they were as impressive for that last 10 minutes without getting the scores. Just the way their belief in themselves went down the stretch was incredible.
And down to 14 men, people were like, how were they turning Kerry over?
Exactly, how they engineered
they made it 14 on 14 out the pitch and had the bravery to go for it, which was, I felt, huge. Tadhg talking about the press is another interesting one, boys. I think it's going to be it's going to be the way forward. I think for most teams, we'll throw them out there. I think it's going to be the way forward now. And what we talked about and we touched on early on is that you have these 3 banks of 4, and you have your 2 defenders. And Tadhg talked about it. They have a defender in Aussie rules, Kev, in this compromise rules. He's the poor old creator. He's in goals, trying to stop Michael Murphy walloping balls and players of very high skill levels. And they're awful in goals.
Yeah.
Like it's tough on them. They should be allowed to bring in a soccer goalie or something, I think. But
did Kerry abandon the press in the second half though? They when they got the extra man, I didn't see them. Well, no, I think Dublin changed tactics, and it always happens at half time that, for the first half, Kerry had them under serious pressure with the 3 banks of 4. Yeah. And then the Dublin backline congregated on their own 45 here, and it takes out your 4 inside men.
It does.
And Kerry didn't have, it's very hard for them to readjust.
I think it's on the frees as well. I don't think Kerry got as many frees as they got in the first half, whereas I felt they had a lot of, obviously Coop, they were struggling inside with Clifford and Gainey. They were pulling down. We were getting these lovely scoreable frees, which now gives you the 30 seconds from when the free is given goes over the bar to allow you get up in this kind of situation in the press. And we talked about a guy like Tommy Walsh, and if Kerry were to start him, and Dublin are in the blue, they've this big press on. Tommy Walsh coming out here and creating an extra body with his size, I think would be, because Dublin's press is intimidating, and so is Kerry's when they have it on. It's really fascinating that we have this high fetching game coming back into it, because if someone can catch it like Howard over the press, you're away. So now and you have the mark thrown in. So before you were out there, you were catching a ball, Tyrone would leave us catch balls and we'd land and
they're all over you.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh, I'm great catching the ball, land, next thing 3 and bang, ball is spilt. It was something they did at Darragh O'Shea and in Big All-Ireland finals. They'd let him catch it and they'd just swarm him when he landed. But a guy like Tommy, who's played the mark for 6 or 7 years down in Australia, I think he'd be huge either if he starts or when he comes on. But I think Kerry should look to get him out there. It also leaves, maybe a Gainey and a Clifford up the pitch for if they do win the ball, that we can get scores.
I think Dublin showed how to beat the Kerry press with the goal though. Yeah. And it's a risk and reward thing. And people might look at it and say, it's a brilliant kick out of Cluxton, unbelievable fetch out of Howard, and 10 seconds later it's in the net.
And you have Jack McCaffrey who runs from here to there in about 7 seconds. I think we didn't talk about it on that, Mike. On what would you have done maybe on that when Howard catches the ball? We'll say Howard caught it over Gavin White. It was one of the best bits of fielding. We'll see. From there, what do you think Kerry could have done maybe to stop the goal? Is there anything you see that, or watching
Gavin White fouls him, there's not a whole pile. I mean, the pace that they put into that attack was just incredible. Yeah. They're gone through the middle before you even know it. Yeah. And even, the thing with the press is if it goes down this side, the other side tucks in, they couldn't even get back quick enough.
I think one thing that they did was the Kerry lads, so Howard catches this over Gavin White here, and we'll say McCaffrey takes off with Scully through the middle. These 2 guys that did a good job dropping, Paul Murphy was one of them, and Adrian Spillane was the other one. And we'll say Adrian was here as this ball's coming up the pitch. I think he flattened out here to try and stop them, whereas I think what Kerry will be saying the next day is, right lads, if they catch that and they're gone, look, just get to here and give up a point, because I thought the Kerry press was brilliant the last day, and bar the goal, and if they didn't concede the goal, they would have won the All-Ireland by 3 points. So bar the goal, I would say it's something that they have to go to hard, and as you said, maybe even look to try and get it on in set play, or this is another thing maybe you could do when you start losing a game. So when your forwards have the ball down here late on in the game and you're losing, maybe your defenders start going and actually pushing up so that, look, and if you turn it over here, you're losing the game. You got to go get the ball back. Maybe you stay in a kind of, Tadhg was saying, if you stay in a press and press them up the pitch and try and turn them over, might be a better way to go than if you turn this ball over and you're set up in your press and everybody starts running back. Why are we running back? We're losing. This game is on the line here. We need to keep up in it.
I think that we talked about the risk and reward thing.
Yeah.
Like, Dublin got the goal off the Kerry press, but Kerry also had 2 goal chances off it also.
Yeah.
And that's the thing you need to realise is you might give up 1-1.
Yeah.
But you could get 2-4 going the other way if it really works for you. And you've talked about Connolly. I think the only reason that you might see he could start is because if Kerry go into that press, they can hit him with a kick out.
Yeah, he's another option.
Like, you have Howard on this side and Connolly on that side.
Yeah.
It's very, very tough for Kerry to
go along.
To get a match up on either side that's a good point. That can match the two of them.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Thanks for that, Mike. We'll just, any other talking points we'll say, what are the main improvements you guys see in what both teams? We'll say, Mike, you take Kerry, you might take Dublin, Kev.
From a Kerry point of view, I think they'll be extremely happy with Sean O'Shea's frees. There was no easy frees he hit pretty much.
Yeah.
Like, all of them were 45 or slightly inside of it. He was unerring with his accuracy all day, and I think for a man playing his first All-Ireland final to do that was brilliant. Like,
it's remarkable. Yeah.
What they will be looking for an improvement on will definitely be their inside forward line score taking. Now, I actually, of all the shots that they took, Clifford, Gainey and Walsh when he came on, none of them were actually from the wrong position, and they're all brilliant scorers. It's something that, you miss a shot.
They weren't shelling.
No, they weren't, and he wasn't kicking one from the sideline, or it wasn't anything like that. It just
Dave might have snatched on one when he came out and he kind of kicked it up into the air. The only snatch kind of effort out of all them ones.
But if they can improve that, you've the 2 goal chances. They left another 3 or 4 points. I think they only had about 3 out of 11 or 4 out of 11 scoring chances for the inside forward line. And I think that's where the key difference for Kerry is.
They were 7 out of 15 in the first half.
Yeah. And the other thing then you could talk about is like the personnel. Like, will Kerry change? I think Tommy gives you one option. Killian Spillane was very good when he came out.
Brilliant.
No, I think
that's the call really. If Gavin White doesn't start and they go with somebody else, Stephen O'Brien over and Jack McCaffrey and Adrian
he kept
Spillane.
him quiet. Stephen O'Brien kept Jack McCaffrey quiet for about the last 20 minutes. Now, he'd done a lot of damage.
He'd done a lot of damage at that stage, but I think Stephen putting him backwards is huge, and we saw what Paddy Durkin did. It's a big one, and I think, in fairness to the Kerry management, they would have said Gavin White can do that because he can, but I think it's actually a plus, and Gavin won't take me as a captain that I've been a captain that's been dropped before, and it's a tough place to be, but I think Gavin White coming on for Kerry with 10 minutes to go in the half-back line is scary for Dublin. They won't... I've played
against him. We played Crokes in Clonmel. He is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, because you turn the ball over in the forward line and
he's gone
2 or 3 seconds later and he's up on the opposition 45. He's lightning quick. Like.
Yeah.
And
when the game is opened up and stretched,
and he can play, like he can carry. He's very, very good. And I think him coming from the half-back line gives them a bigger boost than trying to start him in the half-forward line.
Dublin, Kev, what?
Well, you touched on him earlier on. I don't think Brian Howard will have the same game again. I think he will get way, way better. I think he'll probably maybe analyse it himself. I think he'll be a huge difference. I think Fenton. Bloody, I'm getting
Fenton,
there. I think Fenton will be.
You're mixing up the Raheny boys.
I am, yeah.
It's easy. They're both catching. They're both plucking balls out of the sky.
I just when I've seen him playing and I've seen how good he has been, I think that there must have been something why he didn't have more of an influence on the game himself. And I'd probably look at them, maybe say defensive. I think they'll have to do something with Clifford. I know Clifford's scoring wasn't great in the game, but I think there'll have to be something made for him and how he influenced the game and how good he was, and of course getting Johnny Cooper sent off the way that he played. But I think there will be something made for him. There'll have to be.
Yeah,
I actually think Fenton wasn't helped by the way that the kickouts went on both sides.
He wasn't getting the space to run into.
I don't think that he contested one Kerry kickout. They didn't put a ball down on top of him at all. They went short, and even when they went long, it seemed to be more of a pinged one out to about the 55-yard line with someone running onto it. And on the Dublin side, when Kerry pressed up, they weren't. The only times they kicked it down the middle, Kerry won it, so they stopped after about the first 2 kickouts.
And it's hard for a midfielder when you're out there and you're not getting the ball kicked out. I always, when I was midfield, the most frustrating thing was the opposition would look at me, the keeper would look at me, and then I'd be trying to cheat across to the other side, and you'd never get there, and you were kind of the no man's land.
The ball you always wanted was a ball, an opposition kick out down on top of you with your man in front of you. That was that's a dream for a midfielder, and it's what Mayo did for that last 10 minutes. They kicked 2 or 3 balls down on top of him, and he lorded it, and he was going straight through the middle. Whereas Kerry just took that away, and it's he's very brilliant on the ground as well. He's a very good runner, brilliant link player, and he can score, but sometimes you just need that to get you into the game, and it was kind of taken away from him by the way the kickouts went on both sides.
Momentum, I heard people saying afterwards, Dublin have all the momentum for the replay, or Kerry have the momentum because they've Morton, they left scores behind them. I don't think there's any such thing as momentum going into a replay. I think it's a brand new game.
You've faced each other up, haven't you?
You have.
So close to each other.
I think that when the ball's thrown in, it's who wants to gather momentum by starting the better. So I think I would say Dublin would be saying all week or for the last 2 weeks, let's we nearly messed it up. We got away with it. We found ourselves back into a game with 14 men for 40 minutes. Don't let these Kerry fellas hang around. They're too dangerous. They've got too much. Let's put them to bed early.
Do you think that they take what they did in the last 10 minutes and implement it in the first 10 minutes the next day and say, right, it may not work, but it'll put Kerry on the back foot from minute 1? And let's say that Cluxton comes out and he takes up Tommy Walsh and they push an extra man up the field, and they're just like, if it goes wrong and we're a goal behind, we're good enough to go and win it back.
It's a scary thought, Dublin doing that with an extra defender, an extra guy. They're such good tacklers, they're so strong, they're so sure. We talked about it 2 weeks ago, the build-up, that sideline press that they're so good at doing, tracking from behind, getting you to run into places where you really don't want to go. That's a scary thought if they go for that.
It's just for the first. You can't do that for 70 minutes.
No,
you can't. It's very taxing.
Yeah. But it sets its own.
But if they'd say because I thought at the start of the game they actually let Kerry kind of come into it. We talked about the Jack Barry thing. They didn't really press up. They didn't have many turnovers in the tackle in that first half, and maybe they just go right. This is the way we're going to put them on the back foot and then see what they're made of when it does happen.
Kerry, I feel there'll be a lot of talk in the Dublin camp, we'll put these fellas to bed early.
Yeah.
And I feel that if Kerry can weather that storm early, because I think there's going to be one that just by the law of this, the way this Dublin team has operated over the years, they haven't been great at the start of the games this season. I think they'll go for the juggler, but if Kerry can kind of compete and match that and even turn it around and have a good start to the game, it puts a lot of questions in Dublin's players' head, because they're not sitting at home all for the last 2 weeks going, don't worry about the start of the game, but you never know, because sometimes I say this kind of stuff and then I think back Jim Gavin's probably going, it's all about the process, keep playing, doesn't matter what way we start, we'll keep going. I don't know, is it a focus? It was an old school focus when we were involved in teams, and first 10 minutes go for the juggler, start hard, push up, get turnovers, go for goals. Maybe that's not
They've got a great way of staying in games though when they haven't played well. Even you mentioned that they've not necessarily started well in certain games this year.
Yeah.
And it's almost been just stay in it. We will eventually turn. We'll eventually get right. And
I think they're so sure of themselves down the stretch, Kev. I think it's a huge thing they've developed, and really probably started against us in 2011. The last 10 minutes that day, I think they got belief that day from, we were 4 points up, cruising a small bit, and next thing. I think from that day, any time they've been involved in a tight game later on, including last week, including all the Mayo games, including our game in 16 that was level with 4 or 5 minutes to go, they've always pulled it out. So I think they have great inner belief, and I think if Kerry are to win this All-Ireland, I really do think they need to start like a train, they need to score goals, and they need to have Dublin rattled, and they need to have a good lead. That's my honest belief they'll win it. I think if it's level later on, it's where Dublin are, and we saw it last week, it's where they're so comfortable, they're so sure of themselves, and that was with a man down. So I think a big thing for Kerry will be,
you even saw the wherewithal in the last minute, like Paddy Small is a sub, and we talked about the kick, but he's the one who sets up their last attack and holds the hand up. They all know what they're doing.
I think everybody has a theory on this hand up.
It normally tends to be Kilkenny who does it, but
they're all at it. Johnny Cooper was at it. He got a turnover here against Andy Moran from Mayo, and he looped around Andy Moran and came back out with the hand up. It was more or less to say Lee Keegan had just got the goal. Shamie O'Shea had caught a big kick out. The Mayo crowd were saying, okay, there might be life in this. We're 6 points down, but there might be life in this. And it was like Johnny said, relax, lads. There's no life in you. We have this. Because if you intercept this ball, Kev, even in a soccer pitch, if you're left back, left midfield, if you intercept this ball, you're gone. That's your natural instinct, is you're out in front, you're green grass, let's go. To loop around and put your hand up is like a basketball point guard kind of going, okay lads, there's a minute to go in the game, we're winning by 6 points, we relax, we're gonna take this down the court and be slow with it. So I think that's what, when Paddy Small had it out here, and he'd the hand up, and it was 76 minutes, and it's brilliant by them, it's brilliant by him, it's brilliant by the team that they have the wherewithal to say, okay, there's a minute to go, we're going to get the last shot here, lads. I really think that's what it is. It's kind of settle down, let's work something.
It's incredibly impressive that it's not one of their so-called, you'd probably say maybe Paddy Small probably wouldn't make it into their 10 leaders or anything like that, and he still has the wherewithal to go, right lads, relax here.
I think they demand a lot out of themselves on the mental side of it. I think so, and I think that's why they'd be disappointed the last day with Paddy Small's shot, 5 minutes before that, and certain shots that they took on, there'll be things that they'll want to correct this year or this week, and I see Dublin obviously turning down a lot of these shots and looking to maybe pop a hand pass to the D or just get it into a more dangerous area and work scores. I think it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be I hope it's as good as a game as we got the last day, because it was brilliant stuff. That was good, lads. Kevin, an old teammate of yours, Emil Heskey, has been in studio with Ger for a chat. Here's Emil dealing with smart comments from the public when he's out and about. I have to deal with a lot of that too.
I met a guy in, I can't remember where I was somewhere, and a fan come up and said, oh yeah, Heskey, how you doing, blah, blah, blah. I don't get called Emil, by the way. I'm called Heskey. Right. Everywhere. Heskey, how you doing, blah? Yeah, not too bad, how you doing? Yeah, he was a great player, but he just didn't score enough. I went, I scored over 100 in the Premier League. He went, oh, did you? I went, yeah. He goes, oh, I didn't know that. Well, I'm a rugby fan anyway. Oh. So you're coming up to me and say, but this is this notion that people will actually get if you don't really know football. Yeah. That I didn't score enough, and so that must piss you off. It doesn't really bother me. It happened, and it's happening. Even now, you talk about a lot of people talk about the stuff about Lukaku. We'll go, oh yeah, he's not good at this, he's not good at that, he's not good at this. Top scorer for Belgium. Top scorer in most of these. He's one of the quickest, the youngest to get to 100 goals in the Premier League. Yeah. But we forget all this because they're saying that he can't control the ball. Well, he's good at controlling the ball, but he's not a vision of what you think he should be.
Heskey, I always loved Heskey.
I was at Wigan.
Teammate of his, good stories on him.
Great fella. Yeah, honestly, a brilliant trainer. I used to call him a big softy at times as well, because sometimes he'd be on the train, my back's sore, and he'd walk off. But he put in one of the best performances. We were at Wigan last day of the season. It was probably the biggest club game I would have played in. We were last day of the season. We had to go to Bramall Lane, we had to go to Sheffield United to win the game to stay in the Premier League. We were in the bottom three, Sheffield United were out, Sheffield United were fourth bottom. Any win kept us up, but Sheffield United were reliant upon West Ham going to Man United. You remember the famous Tevez goal that kept West Ham in the league? But our game was a straight head-to-head. Whoever wins stays up. They needed a point, we needed to win. And Emil played. We were down to 10 men with about half an hour to go in the match, 25 minutes to go, and Emil went up centre-half for us. And it was just, he was a great fella, but a really, really good player. Totally underrated.
He's kind of symptomatic of a bygone era in soccer, though, of the big man, small man up front. Himself and Owen were brilliant together at Liverpool, and there seemed to be a lot of those sort of teams around at that time.
Emil's probably my height, maybe even slightly smaller. Wouldn't be as tall as you lads, but physically, obviously, a specimen.
He was a specimen, yeah.
His leap was incredible. Yeah. His leap was unbelievable, and obviously, saying that
he was quick.
He was
for
quick,
a big man. If you're carrying all that size and strength and you've got speed, it was a huge thing for him.
He was, and you probably remember. Maybe you might not, Michael, but certainly I do remember when he broke in at Leicester as a kid. Seeing him break in 16 physically, he was like Rooney at 16.
Yeah.
He was that sort of stature. He was a man, and he just burst on the scene. And he's had a great career. He had a great career. He did, yeah.
You're a big Liverpool fan.
I am.
Was he?
Liverpool fans everywhere. I meet Liverpool fans all over.
They're everywhere now. They were quite there for a long time.
Yeah, they were very quiet.
Yeah. Hey, like, look, you can't be screaming when you're very shy. You know, like, let's be honest about it. Yeah, you know, playing Newcastle at home this weekend, none of the African players have gone away on international duty. And I think Ferguson was brilliant at it, actually. After an international break, you'd see Scholes play, you'd see Giggs play, you'd see the lads who were who stayed at home for 2 weeks or went away for 3 days and came back. So I think you might see Milner will play this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if Lallana played. Look,
I think it's important. Home to Newcastle, realistically, they should win the game. They probably will win the game. Certainly with City travel down to Norwich. Now, I think City will win the game, but the amount of players that they've had, you saw De Bruyne play against Scotland this week for Belgium.
Yeah.
Created 3, scored 1. It was an unbelievable performance. And he started the season maybe as he started last year. A lot of the injuries maybe caught up with him around Christmas time, so I think that affected City. But Liverpool now, this season, if they play like that, steal the march on City every week, it's going to be those two. They're the standout teams in Europe now, and it'll be an interesting day to see what Liverpool do. I think what Michael's saying there, I think they'll start straight away, come out, blow Newcastle away. Right, all on you now. Let's see what you've got to give us. And I just think it's going to be a great season. How these two are going to go head to head, I do.
Do you think it's only them?
Only those two. The level they're playing at, and if you look outside that, you look at Spurs, Arsenal, United, Chelsea. They're nowhere near the level. They're not reaching the level in terms of the intensity they play at, the level in terms of the
They're the two
quality
teams that are surest of themselves, City and Liverpool.
I think that's
right now.
probably thing. 100%.
Manager-wise, tactics-wise, and player-wise, they're setting what they're about.
They seem to know what they're doing inside out. They very rarely change what they do, and I think that's symptomatic of them being so sure in what they're doing, and so they have so much belief in the way they play. Even though, like, both are brilliant teams, but they both play slightly different styles, even though they're set up quite similar.
I think in general, I say you lads, you'd watch enough of it yourself as well. There was a big thing. I covered the England game last week as well, and England's forward line is very much like Liverpool's in terms of they've got a lot of pace. It's all about what they do up front. Liverpool is all about their front three, really. Are they going to be able to control the game in the middle of the park when they might be up against it in the bigger game? And I think that's where De Bruyne comes into it, and David Silva, Bernardo Silva. That midfield of City is just exceptional. And I think that's where Liverpool just do fall short, and I think that's why they will fall short again this season.
That Bernardo Silva is unbelievable. United Leicester on Sunday.
That's the big one, isn't it? I think Saturday. Saturday 3 o'clock. That's the game. United at home. Watching them against Palace last time out, you know what? I think Leicester could go and do a job on them. There's certainly been no fear from Leicester. The players they've got that are in form, obviously Vardy, Maddison's been one of the standout players at the start of the season as well. I think they've got the tools to go and hurt United, definitely have. And I think this is the sort of game where it's going to be a serious test. United, we say, look, let's look where they are. Palace, okay, you can take it, leave it. They dominated the game, should have won the game, but this is one where they're probably not going to dominate as much, and they're going to get hurt the other side. If United win this game, I think this is a big statement for them, and I think they should be winning. They've got better players, but Leicester will go there with a bit of confidence and could hurt them.
Vardy and Maguire will be interesting. They obviously know each other.
Vardy will fancy it, won't he?
I was looking at something last night. He has 78 goals since 2015. The only two guys ahead of him are Aguero and Kane.
So
he came on the scene and it was like...
You know what thing as well, though? Look at his record against top 6 teams. His record is incredible.
Yeah, he does top score 6, goals. That's counter-attacking with Leicester.
Do you see United as the best of the rest?
I did probably at the start of the season, but I still think Spurs will get better. I think Tottenham... Their training programme is, by all accounts, incredible. It's like Liverpool's, and in terms of how they train with the intensity every single day. So I think Tottenham will get better and better. I'd probably say Tottenham is third. I do think Tottenham is third, and I think then you look at Chelsea, Arsenal, United, who would get the 4th spot this year.
I like to look at Chelsea with Mount and Tammy Abraham, and I like the fact that for the first time...
You're a Chelsea man,
I am, but for the first time in a long time, we're throwing in young guys. It's never been the kind of Chelsea way. We've always bought. Well, obviously we couldn't buy this year, but I think that was a big thing with Lampard, I'd say, going in, is I'm going to give these young, there's quality here, I'm going to give them a bit of a...
I think it's always a tendency to do that as well, that these lads, they're signing the best in the world at 16, 17. Now, why are these lads not good enough? We spoke about Troy Parrott earlier on.
Yeah.
Why is he not good enough? And he is good enough, and that's the way that it is. But if you pay 50 million for a player, you have to play him. And it's wrong. It is wrong. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're better than some of these kids they've got, does it?
No, you see, the word comes down from on high then. Why are we splashing out 50 million if you don't play him? On the Tammy Abraham thing, do you think he's good enough to kick on and get you 20 goals this season or 15 goals?
I do. I think he is.
At the start of the season, I think that was the biggest thing that a lot of people were coming out and saying. They were saying, you know, if they're starting with him as their first striker, maybe, you know, they need someone else.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he might be after changing a couple of opinions.
I think there's good backup with Giroud as well. In fairness, like
Definitely.
Giroud
is scored for France last week.
Yeah, but he's a good player. You know, he's scored goals. He's always scoring goals.
The thing I say with Tammy Abraham, right? He was judged on his Premier League season he had with Swansea. Look how Swansea played. Swansea played a different style of football. They're never going to get him the chances.
No.
And look, and I know it's a different level where he's scoring goals at the Championship, but he's played with attacking teams in the Championship. Bristol City originally, Villa last season.
Villa had loads of quality with Grealish, Conor Horan. He was getting chances, and in fairness, he put them away.
So
but
I think with the players you've got, Chelsea, he'll score goals.
Yeah, let's hope so. We've got rugby coming up next. Okay, 2 weeks to go for our Dove Men Plus Care One Tough Job series. Alan Quinlan caught up with Keith Earls, Devin Toner and Jordan Lammer. Check it out here. Stay tuned for our special Saturday panel tomorrow in association with Dove Men Plus Care and Men Sheds.
We're here today to talk to Devin Toner, Jordan Larmer and Keith Earls in the third part of the Dove Men Plus Care series, One Tough Job. Really looking forward to it, to having a chat with the boys today. It's really busy at the moment, so let's go and chat to them. Okay guys, we're here with Dove Men Plus Care. It's the third part of the One Tough Job series. So thanks for joining me. I already chatted to Peter O'Mahony in Cork and Andrew Porter in his house in Dublin as well. So we good chats. I'm really interested and intrigued, obviously, as a former player, because I think I know some of the stuff that you're going through at the moment. That commitment and dedication that you have to give that maybe the lay person doesn't see. Being away from home and the intensity and the toughness of the job.
We got a 3-week holiday at the end of the year, and you're kind of watching yourself on holidays and you think you're going to be eased back into it when you come in, but from the very first session it's been fairly full on, and you know, I suppose trying to get our bodies to adapt as quick as possible with the workload coming over the next couple of months, hopefully.
Is it a mental thing as well, Dev, that you've got to kind of prepare?
For the pre-season, yeah, 100%. But like again, like it's so different this year than any other years. We're doing it straight away with Ireland. Do you know what I mean? Come into camp and then you're straight back into it. Whether it's usually with Leinster or Munster, and then you come together in November to nationals. But having like everyone together so early, it's obviously really beneficial to get the squad together so early and get through a whole lot of work. But like again, it's so much time away that people don't really realise that what you're missing at home. Like,
is there a nervous excitement with it, Jordan? It's the first time you've experienced that. The two boys they're veterans now at this stage. They won't like me saying that.
Like the last, it's been really enjoyable. It's nice when you get a bit of downtime just to try switch off and chill out. And like Dev said, being away from home so much, I think it's important when you get home. You know, you see your mates and you kind of just switch off and try to relax, because when you're in camp it is intense, but yeah, it's hugely exciting.
There is a lot away from home, isn't there, Keith? And how as a dad and a husband, how does that role work for you, and how do you manage that?
Yeah, I suppose for me it's the hardest part, and it's obviously the biggest sacrifice as well. You could be away for the bones of 10, 12 weeks, even more, you know. I suppose we do get home once a week, you know, and I suppose you get all the hugs in as you can when you're there, but
it's hard leaving though, don't it?
Yeah, like that's it. You know, you leave on a Sunday and then you leave again on a Tuesday, you know. So look, but I suppose two of my kids are old enough to realise now that I'm gonna away working, and look, they get to come to a lot of the games as well, which helps, and that's what they're excited about. And I suppose if they can't come, they're watching on telly, and FaceTime helps as well. But yeah, a lot of worry would be with Edel, my wife, obviously looking after 3 girls on her own. That can be quite tough.
That's a tougher job, is it? Do you think, in some sense?
Yeah.
No one really understands how hard it is for them at home, like having to do every single 5:30, 6 a.m. wake up and having to do every bedtime, every bath time, every meal time, everything without you. So yeah, no, it kind of opened my eyes to what they go through on a daily basis, and a whole new level of respect for them.
Going back to those kind of moments for you guys, who would have been your role models? And it doesn't have to be necessarily in rugby. Obviously from a young age, and maybe then when you kind of were making your debuts, who was someone you kind of looked up to?
You want me to say you?
Well, I'd love if you said me, but I know it's not. I know it's going to be Rog or Paul or John Hayes or Wally or someone like that.
Yeah, no, I suppose I was quite lucky.
I played with your dad.
Yeah.
This fella's dad, and we played against each other, and then played for Munster a few times as well.
Yeah, I was quite lucky that I got to watch my father play, and I suppose got to go to Munsters every Tuesday and Thursday night with him, and obviously the fella I looked up with was my father, you know, because I got to see him play week in and week out, and you know, from being a young lad and hearing people talk about him, I suppose like yourselves and Trevor Brennan, the fellas who had good respect
for your dad, like, and the way he played and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you know, he was, I know it's a bit cheesy, like, but he was kind of a superstar in my eyes.
And for you guys?
Yeah, probably growing up, it was probably Brian O'Driscoll, really. You know, you go out in the back garden and try to copy some of the things he did. I remember he was against Wasps and he chipped it over the top of someone and then kicked it again. So just things like that. And then kind of when I made my debut for Leinster and stuff, and you know, obviously everything in that back line is unbelievable, but you know, watching Earlsy play now and when I was growing up, you know, it's just his pace and his footwork and the things he can do. No worries, anytime. Yeah, so even now I'm still trying to learn stuff from him, and you know, always asking him questions and chatting to him. So yeah, you know, there's a lot of world-class players in the back line at the moment, so just trying to, you know, learn as much as I can from them.
Putting in all the hard graft, the tough job scenario, must be incredibly exciting.
It's the position you want to be in at the start of the summer, and it's the position you want to be in ever since you were a young lad. I suppose if you go to any boy or girl in the country at the moment, and you know, I think any of them would want to be preparing for a World Cup.
Thanks for joining me, lads, and the very best of luck in the next couple of weeks.
No, Quinny, your face is nice and smooth there. You're obviously using all
a nice tan as well.
You're obviously using all them Dove products.
Did they have fake tan?
No, that was actually a couple of weeks ago before they went on their training camp to Portugal, the one that was pretty intense, and they came back and they got walloped by England. So I caught up with Devin Toner, Jordan Larmour and Keith Earls there, and had a chat with them for Dove Men Plus Care, and it was a series we did because I'd met Peter O'Mahony and Andrew Porter a couple of weeks before, so I was just getting in behind the scenes of them and seeing it's the whole slogan of the campaign was one tough job. In other words, what's the toughest job? Managing family life and kids and just the sacrifice, and you guys know that. Amateur professional, like, you have to manage all the other stuff as well, and if that stuff is not going well, it's hard to perform. So that was before they went to Portugal, but obviously they're landed in Japan now since yesterday. And
expectation levels, Quinny, they're about right. We were losing the run of ourselves when we were beating the All Blacks a small bit.
Yeah, I don't think they were losing the run.
No,
of themselves.
I know they weren't, but just as a nation, that pressure going into it. It'd be like Kerry going into the All-Ireland final last week versus finals that I would have went into. Fellas would be saying, "Oh, you'll win," whereas they were telling, "You won't." They're about right now.
As players, in any sport at any level, you do try and block out the outside influences and the perception. And look, we're a small country. Rugby is not number one here. It's down the pecking order a bit. The GAA, the soccer is ahead of it. and rightly so. That's kind of the pecking order of it. But rugby is incredibly popular, and it has grown, particularly with the provinces, the provincial stuff, with Leinster and Munster winning European Cups over the years, and in rural parts of Ireland. So people like their rugby as well. GAA people like their rugby. Rugby people love their GAA because that's what we all grew up with. Particularly, I'm from Tip, and I wanted to play hurling for Tipperary, not rugby initially.
What happened, Joe?
I wasn't good enough. Plain and simple. But I think we kind of did, like in 2018, we were World Team of the Year. Johnny Sexton was World Player of the Year. Joe Schmidt was Coach of the Year. So celebrating that is good too, and important. And I think maybe some people who maybe haven't kind of skin in the game, if you like, or not very, very much involved with their local club went, wow, that's great, we're this, we're that, we're going to win the World Cup. We were never going to win a World Cup on the back of that, just on the back of that. I think there was going to be a long road, and this 12 months since last November has shown that sport can change like that. From 1 week, you lose a big game, little seed of doubt in there, and that happened in the Six Nations. So we're beaten by England. We had a decent win in Scotland. We were poor against Italy over in Rome, and then, a bit better against France in Dublin, and then the Welsh game at the end with we got kind of smothered out of that and kind of manhandled a bit, I think, and that kind of creates this seed of doubt and this bit of negativity. And then obviously the English game a few weeks ago legitimately asked a lot of questions and created a lot of concerns and worries, which were badly exposed. And I think just the timing of it, and all you guys know, sometimes you can be playing the match and a couple of things go wrong, and then it can get worse. It can get worse. So where Ireland, 40 points worse.
Yeah.
It probably not on a given, if it was a couple of days later, they wouldn't have been. England, to be fair, they were 10, 15, 20 point winning margin, I thought would be acceptable, not the scoreline. But the way they've responded in the last couple of weeks has been much better, and I was very encouraged about what I saw last Saturday. So the expectation, going back to what you said, was big in 2018. And sometimes as Irish people, are we nervous with that kind of scenario?
We definitely, it sits way better with us when we're
I think it's
underdogs.
the case as well, most definitely. I think we're all a lot more, well, I would be anyway, I'd be a bit more happy if watching the rugby, like going away now thinking, well, tell you what now,
we're a nice place.
Better play. You touched on it earlier on. I'd feel that anyway.
Yeah, and I think...
What would you like from inside the camp? Would you like to... we are the best, like, that mentality?
From when I played right back, when I started with Munster in 1997, and we were going into this European Cup, so we were like, Jesus, Declan Kidney said this, we're going to win Europe someday, we're going to win the European Cup. We thought it was crazy, we didn't have that kind of winning mentality. And all our sports people now feel they can go on the world stage, whether it's our boxers or our swimmers or our cyclists or anyone, any of the athletes competing. The Roars, the Cork boys, the Donovans, we feel now we can go and win things, and we're kind of much better as an Irish psyche is much better around winning culture.
Yeah.
I grew up in a culture where, Jesus, you play England and keeping the score line down was the mentality. So our psyche now, so I like the fact that if you're a winner and you win stuff, that, you can go and win more. Let's deal with the favourites tag.
Yeah.
But in saying that, we're now in a position where we kind of, that expectation is much lower, and we've got to deal with an underdogs tag. You look at the New Zealand press during the week, totally writing us off. They're saying, and rightly so, England, New Zealand, South Africa, the top three. Wales, Ireland, they're not in a position that they're going to win a tournament. So do you want to be in that position, is the question you were saying, and I was there. Well, it depends. Sometimes it suits us. I'd rather be going off to a World Cup in prime position, but then the danger is maybe you hit a brick wall there. So we've hit a brick wall. I just hope that a little bit of seed of doubt doesn't kind of crop up again.
Yeah.
Either way, we got to start well against Scotland, manoeuvre our way through the tournament. Then we've got Japan, which can be tricky, Russia, which will be, with respect, will be easier, and Samoa, you could be dangerous as well. I just really believe if we get to quarter-finals, that given Joe Schmidt what he's done here, and look, there's a bit of negativity in the last while, maybe that we're too structured and stuff.
Can I just ask you about the bit of negativity around the last couple of weeks? I don't want to cut across you, sorry there.
No, but the last few months, the Six Nations
but
as well.
More so around the last few weeks with with Toner being left out and Klein coming in, the circumstances which Klein's come into the squad as well. Would that affect the squad, the group of players going over there, or is it? I spoke about it maybe on that little bit of selfishness. Is that have to come into it, or is it almost?
I know where you're going, because if you're playing, particularly the Leinster guys, and even it doesn't really matter, the Munster, Ulster kind of guys that know Dave and be very close to him would kind of. What you're saying is Jean Klein has really only kind of probably got to know some of these guys in the last 2 months, 3 months. Is there a little bit of negativity towards him that one of their good friends is gone? Deep down, you can kind of have those feelings at the start and say, well, Jesus, this is not fair or whatever. But ultimately, you have to become selfish. You know, I went to a World Cup in 2003, and we played a trial in the Old Lansdowne Road, and you know, some of the Munster guys that I would have been incredibly close to, we were playing against them. I remember Paul O'Connell and I were on one team, and Marcus Horn and Frankie Sheehan and David Wallace were on the other. So, and the back row was very competitive. And I remember Wally and myself tearing lumps out of each other. Wally was an incredible wing forward, but we were now in a situation that maybe it was so competitive in that back row area that maybe one of us might only go. And we're tearing strips out of each other, and you kind of go, well, I've got to do it, and he's got to do it, and you just have to be selfish.
So Schmidt, when he made that though, Quinny, like he's obviously weighed that up big time, and there must be reasons behind it. Like, I don't think he drops his main guy who's been there, done it for him with Leinster and Ireland for the last 4 or 5 years. There must be a reason behind it.
Everybody has an opinion, Kieran, on the outside, saying, well, it's wrong and it's this and that.
No, I don't buy into that though.
I played for Munster for so long.
I think it's wrong.
I should be having a cut off Joe maybe, but I'm a Munster man. I played for so long. He's brought all this success to Leinster as well, and it'd be a great chance for me to stick the boot in and say, it's wrong. But I don't believe it's wrong. I believe for what Joe's done, I have massive amount of respect for him, for what he's delivered here in Irish rugby with Leinster and Ireland, that you nearly kind of have to go, well, he's made this decision given it's a judgment.
He's made it for Ireland.
Morally, people are questioning the idea of Jean Klein becoming Irish qualified.
I know, but we've
that's the thing. I've got a massive problem with it all.
And I respect your opinion on that, because you're absolutely entitled to say that. And I've said it to some people. Luke Fitzgerald has given out about it. Other people, Neil Francis gives out about it. I actually don't have a problem with it. I played with overseas guys in Munster who went on and qualified for Ireland. And you know, it never bothered me, to the point that if they come over and they invest their time here and they're given 110% in that dressing room, I never kind of went, oh God, you're not Irish. You know what I mean? That's the way I was about it. And I'm very passionate about my country. I know you are as well. And some people are entitled to that opinion that it doesn't sit well with them. I just think John Klein has been picked on the basis of stuff that the coaches have seen throughout the last 2 months. Devin had an ankle injury. Probably was behind a little bit on the fitness stuff. He's an incredible player, and you could not meet a nicer bloke, and a positive bloke. A guy who tweets that evening or the day after wishing the boys the best of luck, no bitterness about him. And you know what? He could well end up going out there in a couple of weeks.
It doesn't make it not tough on him, it is tough on him.
No, it's very tough on him, you know.
I think really that he would have made that decision, Joe would have made it, to say, and you know how are Ireland going to win the World Cup? I think this guy gives me a better platform.
And whether
it's the only way you can make it.
The thing is, you can't necessarily blame Joe Smith for the decision. That's his decision on the team.
But the circumstances
I'm talking about
the rules of the 3-year scenario, which is now changed to 5. Which is now changed to 5.
5, 10, 15. I wouldn't care with that.
Yeah.
How
they're either Irish or they're not Irish.
Well, it is, and personally, that's what I think, and I would think that if somebody has come over at a younger age at 9 and 10, I've got no problem with that. But if you're naturalised or nationalising them at 19, 20, someone's not quite cutting it at Munster or Connacht or wherever, and all of a sudden then you're moving someone on to get them in.
The reason why this happened through probably from the kind of 2000s onwards is because we didn't have a big pool of players to choose from. Rugby went professional in 95, 96, so for the provinces kind of to be successful in Europe, they needed a couple of outside players, and to be able to invest in 3 or 4 players, and then suddenly kind of on the back of that, some of them became Irish qualified, stayed here a number of years and were very successful with the provinces, and then suddenly one or two started playing for Ireland, and it was probably not as much of a furore about it as there is now. And I think that's the reason the whole thing happened. But you see the likes of England, they probably have 3 or 4 as well. When you're saying, Jesus, England, the pool of players you have. But I do understand that it doesn't sit pretty with some people. But New Zealand are doing it for decades. Now the Islanders, a lot of them come and live and grow and move to New Zealand.
Yeah, but they come and live and get free, they get a job, free schooling because they're running the 100 metres in like 11 seconds.
At the end of the day, Kieran, I think that Ireland are out of the goldfish bowl of that expectation.
They're over in Japan now, the pressure's off.
And I always liked the fact when the squads I was picked in, the World Cup in 2003 in Australia was incredible. We had 2 weeks practically on the beach in Tadhg. We had a great base. We trained down the road.
Would you go for a night out?
We had a few beers, nothing major, but we had we were just away from everything, and like genuinely fellas. And sometimes people don't realise the importance of 2 lads grabbing a coffee and saying, you know what, against Scotland now, X, Y, and Z is going to do this, and we just got to make sure that we're on the money, and those little chats and conversations, and you don't have the kids, wife, you're not rushing home to pay bills, to do the food shop and to help out at home. You're actually away, and you're out of that probably expectation of reading what's on the papers and seeing what's been said and all that stuff, and you can just focus your mind a little bit. It's the final push really, and they have an incredibly tough start with Scotland. It's a hard start. They can't ease their way into this, so it's enjoyable as well. Kev, from being away
over there in Japan, it's nice as well.
You got a good welcome in Japan, Kev?
Oh, we did, but yeah, I've just seen a couple of videos there with Owen will be posting some, but we seem to have a different reception with every town we went to. We've got to go to this function, and you've got to respect the culture there. You've got to respect them, and they'd have a welcoming party coming in for you. Then we go into a next town, and we'd have another welcoming party waiting for us. It was fun. It was fun, yeah.
And all the teams are doing that. I've seen some of the videos, like the reaction in Japan. I can't wait to go out there and see the amount of kids that are going to train, the schools that are turning up, the singing they're doing for the different teams. It's amazing. So even though they're out of the goldfish bowl here, they still have stuff to do over there. But ultimately, for us to have success at the World Cup, I think we need a bit of luck with the injuries. You look at 2015, we were missing Paul O'Connell, Tommy Bowe, Sean O'Brien, Johnny Sexton, Jared Payne against Argentina in that quarter-final. If we get a little bit of breaking ball and can get to a quarter-final, it's going to be incredibly tough. It'll be against either New Zealand or South Africa. Saying that we get to a quarter-final. So it's an incredibly tough task.
And we'll be back to the situation we talked about at the start, that we'll be the underdogs big time, no matter who we're playing. The picture of the South African boys is ridiculous.
Ridiculous, yeah. We'll read the Indo tomorrow. I do a piece on it. It's shocking, and the culture and the amount of people have been caught over the years with steroids in South Africa. It's frightening. I'll tell you quickly.
There's been a narrative about that.
They have a schools week there every year, and it's kind of a schools competition where they come from all over, play, and it's kind of a stepping stone and a situation where Currie Cup teams and Super Rugby teams pick out players and they sign them, and it's an opportunity for them to showcase their talents at 17, 18-year-old. 6 of them out of 122 tests last year in 2018 tested positive for steroids. So 6 17, 18-year-olds.
That'd be their own choice.
You can Google this.
That's just the ones that it's in the system for. I'm sure there may well have been other ones. 6 out of 122
at a schools week like that, a drug culture there, and there's a lot of high-profile players. Now, it's another conversation, we can talk about it again, but...
going back to the bit of luck that you were talking about, because I think that's important for us. There's certain guys we can't lose.
There's leaders there. You know yourself. You all know from playing on teams. Those couple of characters that you need when things get tough and you need someone to kind of step up in the dressing room, and I think that's vitally important. If they believe a lot of stuff maybe in the last few months, and to be fair to Joe, he acknowledged after the Six Nations that they were broken. They were a bit broken from just things not going right, then trying to fix it on the run and maybe getting scattered amongst themselves and just losing some physical collisions and stuff like that, and just a loss in form in certain top players. if that stuff kind of festers and gets back into their heads, well, I think the best way to deal with negativity, because ultimately coaches can't run out onto the field and do it for you. It's leaders on the field. So Sexton, Murray, question marks about both of them maybe in the last 6-8 months.
They've been injured, they haven't
they were
played.
phenomenal.
It's been
they were
tough,
phenomenal the whole year. Grand Slam series.
It was a
win
good
in
look
Australia.
about them the last day though.
Yeah, they look better, yeah, for sure. And, you know, the top players. Then you have a young fella like James Ryan, who's world class. You know, you want to keep him injury free, and I think there's a number of players there that really need to step up and become leaders and really grasp this. And, you know, they may get if they get into that quarter-final situation, then I think that's where they might cause a shock. And it's a shock now. A year ago we were winning the World Cup, but I wouldn't have got carried away. I thought the win against New Zealand, and some people criticise and say, well, it's hysteria and it's over the top and they're only friendlies.
There's nothing friendly
to the
about
rugby
them.
people,
There's
you
nothing
know,
friendly about them.
to people who've played in them and stuff, there's nothing.
Test match.
They're test matches.
Yeah.
I know it's a different term and there's no trophy at stake, but we had never beaten New Zealand 112 or 15 years. I can't remember the exact number up to that win in Chicago a couple of years ago. So we've beaten them twice under Joe Schmidt and the vast majority of this group of players, and that's a phenomenal achievement.
New Zealand they don't want to lose any game. They're so proud as a nation,
but
like
look,
it kills them.
ultimately, the problem we have, and this is reality, we've never got past the quarter-final in the World Cup, and fairly or unfairly, that's the stick we'll be beaten with at the end of this. So fingers crossed, it's going to be a busy couple of weeks for them, but they definitely need their big players to step up and deliver.
There's a lot of talk about a quarter-final and, you know, playing New Zealand and South Africa. Like, are Scotland not a huge threat now in this first game?
Yeah, so basically, we're looking at whoever wins the Ireland-Scotland game, we're thinking they'll top the group. I've said this from the very word go, and I want to be clear about it. Japan beat South Africa at the last World Cup, right? They have a number of these resident project players in the last, because a lot of the Kiwis and Aussies and South Africans go and play in Japan. The money is massive, and they've become eligible to play for Japan. So they'll have 5 or 6 Southern Hemisphere guys from Australia and New Zealand, which will bulk them up, and given rugby they've got better themselves, they'll be a very dangerous prospect. Very dangerous prospect against Ireland or Scotland. But look, we're assuming we get through the pool stages, Michael, and beat Japan. We will beat Russia, and assuming we'll beat Samoa. They're not going to be easy games, and we get to, you know, that quarter-final. So we're not saying we're in a quarter-final, we're saying we're aware of the potential threats, but they should get to a quarter-final.
Jeremy Guscott had a pop off us, claiming Joe Smith's side are miles away from where we need to be.
Yeah, well, look, it's...
that's going probably in the back of the English game.
Yeah, and New Zealand have done a few pieces on that, and that's where we're at. That's where the perception is now. Well, as I said to you at the start, I'd rather be saying Ireland are going to win the World Cup, because I'd love to be... I kind of, from my kind of negative mindset at the start of my career, thinking you couldn't win things, I think you can deal with that, and it's a great place to be. It's like the Dublin players tomorrow. They're 4, you know, that's where you'd rather be, Kieran.
Yeah.
I'd rather be a winner and actually winning multiple titles, and everyone's saying, you know, deal with that pressure.
Yeah.
Then, you know, there's great fun as well, of course, being the underdog and kicking the crap out of someone and surprising everyone. That's brilliant as well.
That only happens, you know, it didn't happen that often.
Well, sometimes it can happen, and talking about the football, Kerry can launch a team as well onto the next step. Leinster beat us in 2009 in a Heineken Cup semi-final in Croke Park, and they went on then and won 3 Heineken Cups after that. So, you know, we were the team at the time. They knocked us off our perch, got us on the day, and, you know, you can get great momentum from that as well. So, look, we are the underdogs, and all the experts and all the ex-players and journalists will say, and that's the evidence. We've got to deal with the evidence we've seen. I was encouraged by last Saturday. I think they're better than what we've seen in the last couple of months.
Has he been holding stuff back, do you think?
Well, we've certainly not holding back getting into Six Nations. I think the English game, we definitely wouldn't have been. He definitely wouldn't have been in the last 2 Welsh games, gone out doing loads of different strike plays and moves and stuff. And he's renowned for those strike plays that when he was with Leinster and with Ireland, that they've got to win their line out in scrums first. But if you think back to Twickenham 2 years ago when CJ Stander scores that try and you have Tadhg Furlong doing a little pivot standing as first receiver, those kind of things, the Stockdale try going back on the blind side with his little chip kick off the line out, those kind of things, if you can come up with one of them in a quarter-final of a World Cup against South Africa and New Zealand, and I just think if that Ireland team gets in front and they get that feeling again of where they were and this is what we can do, I think they can be very hard to beat. The flip side of it is if teams get ahead of them, we're not great at chasing because we're fairly structured in what we do. So
we have guys that can come in and kind of add a bit though.
Yeah, there's a few like Carberry and Larmour and these guys and Earls, try and get them a bit of ball, they can do something. But look, it's either way, there is pressure. We're not saying there's no pressure, but there's less expectation of this group, and let's see what happens in the next few weeks.
Yeah, all right, just hang on. So lads, we'll be crossing over to Tokyo in a few moments. We've a guy over there, a good Kerry man. So we're back after these.
OTB
all right, lads.
AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darrell Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
Rugby season is back, and Lifestyle Sports is giving you the chance to win something very special.
The ultimate rugby year for you and 3 mates.
You could be headed to the Champions Cup final,
the Pro 14 final,
interprovincial games of your choice,
and get match day ready with kit bags full of jerseys,
new season training gear,
€400 in vouchers, and more.
Check out lifestylesports.com.
Lifestyle Sports Rugby on Insta,
or buy any jersey in store or online for a chance to win.
Live rugby with Lifestyle Sports.
OTB AM.
Welcome back. I think we've got Owen Sheehan. Owen, are you there?
I am indeed. How are you getting on, lads?
Konnichiwa.
Konnichiwa, Owen.
Konnichiwa, that's right, yeah. Absolutely. It's the only word I've got. We were listening to Rory Best a little bit earlier on, and he's got a million words. He addressed the Japanese crowd here in Chiba like an expert Japanese speaker. So he's flying it, and the team are flying it, it seems, when it comes to Japanese.
Have you got some...
We've got some video here of Rory Best, who was given a traditional Japanese gift by the locals here in Chiba. And basically this gift is a symbol of success, that the thing has 2 eyes. And you make a pledge to yourself, you make a goal, and you colour in that eye to represent the pledge. And then when you complete the goal, you go back and you paint the second eye. But as we'll see here in just a moment on screen, the marker didn't actually work for Rory Best to colour in that eye. So I'm not sure is that a bad omen or not when it comes to the Ireland team here. There was a traditional dance here. There was a musical performance. We've had people come up and welcome the Ireland team. The mayor of the town here came up and welcomed the Ireland team to the place. So that's what happened today in Chiba. A welcome ceremony for the Ireland team. Apparently where they're training out here in Chiba is state-of-the-art facilities, or so the mayor was telling us. He says that the grass has been checked many, many times, and always it has scored a top-class scoring. I don't know what that means, or I don't know what... Kieran, you might know a thing or two.
Yeah, that's probably testing from World Rugby. They would have tested the pitches out there for games, and I presume they would have tested the training pitches as well. So I'd say he's referring to the pitch being in top level. Rory has got a marker that's working there, I think.
Well, when it comes to Irish training camps in this part of the world, we've obviously had a nightmare in 2002 when it came to a pitch that felt like a car park. So it's good to hear that this particular pitch there's plenty of grass on it anyway, so the mayor said. So there was a couple of media opportunities after today as well. A massive scrum involving Johnny Sexton afterwards. Here to Johnny, as we'll hear.
Obviously you're not there too long, but I've been really intrigued by all the videos and stuff I've seen with the different teams arriving, the welcomes they've given. What's the feeling on the ground there? Are all the local towns and local people really kind of excited by the potential of this World Cup?
Not at all, actually, Alan. It's actually difficult to know that there is a World Cup a week away. I'm sure it'll be the case when you fly over, when all the Irish fans fly over next week. They'll be coming over more Wednesday, Thursday direction by all accounts. And at the moment, there is plenty of advertising. There are plenty of ads you'll see in the subway stations and all that sort of thing. But in terms of actual a feeling that this thing is going to get taken over by the Rugby World Cup, that is not the case whatsoever. It's just too big a city, Tokyo especially, to get taken over by the World Cup. Apparently, when they go further south, that will be the case. When they go down to Shizuoka for their second game against Japan, that'll be the place when the Rugby World Cup really engulfs the city. But for the time being, unless you go to these Rugby World Cup events and these press events, it is hard to tell whether or not this is the right place for the World Cup. As I mentioned there a moment ago, Sexton was speaking after the welcome ceremony here, and I spoke to him. Johnny, to what extent do you now start focusing on Scotland as an individual task rather than the World Cup as a whole?
Now, yeah, we haven't really. We never spoke about the World Cup in pre-season, and now we're here. We'll focus fully on Scotland. They're a very, very good team. You saw that through the Six Nations in most of the Six Nations. They were a little bit unlucky against us and against Wales, where they arguably could have won both games, and they should have won the England game as well. So we know the threat that they pose, and we will start tomorrow really to analyse them like we do, and try and be as well prepared as we can.
How important is it for you to get the mind away from rugby over the next week, because camps like this can be intense sometimes?
No, I'm looking forward to we had a few days off before we left. We got to spend some time with our families before we're away for a long time, so we had that switch off time. This week is about work and about preparing, so there won't be too much downtime. And then in your own case, do you feel you're up to match speed now after the last day? Obviously you got taken off fairly early, which would suggest Joe is fairly happy with where you're at. We'll find out on Sunday. You never know. Everything will be judged on results and performances after Sunday, so I feel physically very good. Obviously I would have liked to play maybe another game, but a couple of issues prevented me from playing that one extra game. I think I was only going to play two. I'm happy with the prep physical prep that I did all summer, and then now I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this World Cup.
Translation? スコットランドに向けてどのようなお気持ちですかという質問です。
Johnny Sexton there speaking afterwards. As you can hear, there's a bit of to and froing with the translators at every press conference so far here in Japan. One of the other questions that came in actually, and the second part of this answer here from Johnny Sexton is very interesting, but it starts off when he's asked by a journalist about the reception he's got in Japan so far.
Johnny, what did you think of the reception you got here today, and are you looking forward to the atmosphere and the crowds in Japan?
Yeah, it was a great reception today. Japan is renowned for its hospitality and its welcomes, and we were looked after unbelievably well when we arrived at the hotel and here today. Second part of the question, the atmosphere. I've looked at the stadium. I've seen pictures of it. I haven't been in the stadium yet, but it's 70,000 people, and every second person I spoke to in Ireland before I left was coming over. So I'm sure the atmosphere is going to be very special. It always is at World Cups for Ireland. I think the Irish always travel, and I'm sure we'll have our fair share of support there on Sunday.
What did you think of Rory's efforts with the painting of the eyeball?
It was good. I thought it was excellent, yeah.
Just on that, Johnny, one of my messages, you have to make a goal, obviously, when you fill out one eye and fill out the other eye when the goal is achieved. Is the goal for all of you to win the World Cup?
Yeah, again, it's not something that we've spoke about, but as long as I've played any sport, you want to win every competition that you're in, and so I don't think we're coming in here saying we want to make this stage or this stage. We're taking it a step at a time, and the first step for us is Scotland, and it's our biggest challenge that we have to face, because it's our next one, and if we can get through that, then Japan will be our biggest game, and we'll work our way through the tournament like that. Okay.
And then the last question we have, it actually came from a Japanese journalist, was about the world #1 ranking and what Johnny Sexton thinks about that.
That you got first in the world ranking, how do you like it, and what's your observation on that? And second question is what's the strengths of your team? Johnny?
I think it's if you told us after the England game that we're going to be world #1 going into the World Cup, people would have probably laughed at us. So it just shows how they can just change, over the matter of a week. It's not something that we've paid too much attention to it's probably something that we'll have a look at maybe next year when the seedings are for the next World Cup. But at the moment, it's not something that bothers. I think New Zealand were number 1 for 3 years. So if you take it over the 4 years, they're probably still favourites, but it's not something that we speak about a lot.
まず一つ目の質問ですけれども、そのイングランド
Good stuff, Owen. That's you looks like you're on top of your game out there, but when you won't be on top of your game is probably 2 o'clock in the morning over there when you're trying to figure out where you're going to watch the All-Ireland final with a few pints in you. Have you that figured out yet?
Sunday morning for him, yeah.
I've sorted it out here, and there is a place, and it sounds like a very tame establishment. It's called the Geronimo Shot Bar, and it's located in Roppongi district here in Tokyo. So that is showing the All-Ireland final here. As you know, a good Irish-sounding pub. I don't know why the hell they're showing it in there, but I've been tipped off that is where I will catch the match.
If Kerry win, Owen, make sure that you give the name and address of your hotel and a taxi number or something that they send you back, that you don't get lost in Tokyo.
Yeah, I'd say you'll be doing some Geronimoing out there, I'd say, somehow. That's all.
I was just chatting to Colin Fuller, the Ireland physiotherapist earlier on. He says he's going to skip the match, unfortunately. He's not. Oh, sorry, no, it's the other way around. He's going to watch the match, but I've got to be up for a Joe Schmidt press conference at 9 o'clock, so I should be the one skipping the match. So, and there'll be interest out here as well, no doubt.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I don't see you skipping the match. That's all from us this morning. Michael, thanks very much for joining us. Ellen, you're heading to Tokyo next week.
Next week, yeah. Looking forward to it.
Stay out of Geronimo Shop Bar.
Yeah, well, you'll be chatting to me next week, probably.
We'll look forward to it. That's all from us. Thanks for joining us this morning. See you next week.
OTB